Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another core rattling episode of the Over Sharon Show. We have a really good one for you guys today. I'm so excited about it. But before we get into that, I'm going to read the quote and then I'm going to bring everybody else in. Today's quote is by Alan Watts. And it goes, the relationship of self to other is the complete realization that loving yourself is impossible without loving everything defined as other than yourself. So I'm going to read it one more time because it's a little wordy. The relationship of self to other is the complete realization that loving yourself is impossible without loving everything defined as other than yourself. All right. And
I must say that's very deep. I had to read that at least a couple of times, and I could still do some contemplating on that.
yes, hence why I read it twice. Hi, Sharon. How are you doing today?
Good call. Thank you. I'm great.
Awesome. I'm great too. We finally got this together. I'm so excited.
Yay!
So, everybody, today's guests really need no introduction if you're a fan of the Oversharon show. But we have Joe P and Spoons are here. Joe P is he lives in Germany. Spoons is here in the good old U.S. with Sharon and I.
But
Uh,
he's from Long Island.
yes, he is from Long Island, close to the city. So yeah, Long Island. So yeah, we're really excited
Iced
to have
tea.
them
I'm
today.
just kidding.
Iced tea, Long Island iced tea. Yeah, that's what you order when you want to forget about tomorrow. Like, just keep the Long Islands coming. I don't want to start talking about Long Island iced teas and how it represents Long Island so well with a mixture of just gross things. Just kidding. I love Long Island. But yeah, I'm really excited for you guys that are here today. And I just realized when we started that this is Joe and Spoon's first time actually having like a face to face.
Yeah,
They've known each other
it
for a couple
is.
of years, like we all have through Telegram and through the show and stuff like that. So I'm just excited to see where it goes.
Me too. Yeah. So before I do that, I'm going to pull a card, but I will like preface it by saying that we're going to be talking about a topic we've kind of been kind of dancing around lately, this topic of letting go that David R. Hawkins talks about. And I was introduced to that by Joe. That kind of the topic of letting go, especially in the way that David R. Hawkins talks about it, Dr. David R. Hawkins. Um, so we're going to be, it's kind of just going to be a fun little panel discussion about, letting go and some of the methods that we've used, because, everyone is just a little bit different. And some of us use different methods. Like Spoons was using some of, she was telling us about some of the methods that she used for letting go on her episode. So, and that was episode 118. So please go check that out if you have not. It'll give you a little background on Spoons before this episode if you'd like. Either way, I will pull a card.
And I want to say really quickly too, Joe P has been a guest on our show several times, so go back and check those out. I'm sure the lovely Sharon will put the links below, but also he's been on my show with our friend Jeff, and we plan on recording something next week also. So stay tuned for that. So I was just letting you know, if you like Joe and you like me, and you listen to all the Oversharons, go check out the Brandon Bonanza podcast. And we talk about some fun stuff. Joe was in the Army. I was in the Marine Corps, so we talk about Full Metal Jacket and propaganda and all that fun stuff and a bunch of other stuff. So check it out. And like Sharon said, our episode last week with Spoons, it just felt like a regular conversation. It was so crazy because we've sat around before and had conversations IRL. Everybody, we've met in real life, and that's really what it felt like. And there's so many, especially if you're an INFP. I mean, it's you don't have to be because I'm not one, but I got a lot out of that. So go check it out, everybody. And this week's episode is 119, which is a mere reflection of a sacred number that we all know about. So let's make it fun.
Awesome. Thank you for that little offshoot side comment. I have pulled a card and this is interesting. I pulled this card from the Tarot of the Divine the other day for myself for a personal reading. It is the Five of Wands. I
Oh,
don't pull this often. I really don't. But this is an interesting card because the five is about kind of a little bit of a chaos, a little bit of I don't know. Maybe it could also be like friendly banter, right? Like riffing off each other and stuff like that. Um I will let Brandon talk about his perspective, but before I do, I just want to read from the Tarot of the Divine because I really liked that perspective. Um, and it was like very encouraging, I think. So I'm just going to read from that. And that card is, it says the Pandavas, India Sanskrit epic poem. And it looks like, it's hard to see, but it's like five Indian brothers, like with their wands, kind of like, having a little bit of a, I don't know, I'll read it. It says, the Five of Wands is represented here by the Pandavas, five brothers who embody unity in the face of conflict. I love that. I just love that perspective. The five brothers have been known to bicker and play fight, but they also care deeply for one another. A resolution to their strife only comes from good communication. The upright position meaning is rivalry, opponents, disagreement, competition, clashing egos. The reversed is compromise, peace, harmony, resolution, conflict avoidance. And I just want to say that as much as we in like when we're doing these shows, there's a lot of times where we have comments and we agree with each other on, but it doesn't mean that Brandon and I and Joe and Spoon see everything exactly identically the same way. And that's why it's very cool to have this like panel because we can share our personal view, our personal perspective. And it doesn't mean that what works for that person's going to work for the other person, right? So anyway, I thought this card's kind of interesting and relevant in that way to me.
yeah. It's like there's four of us. So who's the fifth? Right? The Five of Wands. Who's the fifth member of
Who's the
this?
fifth wheel?
Who's the fifth wheel? I like it. It's probably God or whatever, I don't know. Maybe it's my cat back there, but I like what you said about the Five of Wands. The Pandavas is a great synchronicity because
The
that's
Bhagavad
Arjuna's.
Gita, right?
Yeah, that's Arjuna's family. I'm pretty sure the
Family.
Pandavas,
Yeah, I thought so.
or Pandavas, however you say it. And we talk about the Bhagavad Gita a lot. And like Sharon said, this card is about conflict. It's an uneven number five, but it doesn't have to be conflict or chaos in a bad way. It's just like the card shows the kids, and then the Rider Waite, you see the five children playing, also kind of like beating each other up with the sticks, playing around. And in the card that Sharon showed, and also in the Rider Waite, it looks like there's actually a pentagram being formed with these five wands, but it's not together yet. And you see the other in
Oh,
the one from the book, and
oh, okay.
I could even pull one up, but you see an A being built, and this would be way better for visualization. So let me get you guys a picture, and what it reminds, it's like an anarchy uh, thing
Found
here.
it.
Let's see, this will work. This will work. All right. So yeah, on yours it's a little more. This one it's not quite as defined, but it's still a little like sideways or whatever.
Yeah.
So it kind of reminds me of that anarchy or chaos maybe before something's built or while it's being built. It might look like chaos is going on from the outside observer, but what these young men are going through is important for them to develop. They need to test their limits, and that's how they're doing it. Boys will be boys. And if you look at it esoterically, though, it's I feel because it's wands, it's fire, and it's creation. So it's really about what we're going to be talking about today. Honestly, that 5, it's like the inner conflict, but it's not
A
a bad
catalyst
thing.
for growth, I would say.
Yeah, a catalyst for growth for sure. And while you're doing that inner work and aligning things, it could seem chaotic, but it's going to lead to something that's a little more peaceful, I guess you could say, in your life, or just a little more order out of the chaos. Um,
Indeed.
let's see.
Do Spoons or Joe have any comments on the card?
I think it's interesting that it comes up when we're doing a panel.
Right? Because I haven't pulled that card ever, I don't think, on the show.
Right.
I don't think that card has been pulled on the show that I remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
And I was thinking maybe the fifth member is the audience, the chat.
That's wonderful. That's
yes. Great. Dear listener, you are our 5th member of this podcast.
You're the 5th wheel. Welcome. In the live chat when you're chatting. Joe, was there something you were going to say?
Well, yeah, something came to my mind while Brandon was talking, actually. Okay, so everything's in motion. You could think of it as chaos, but that's just how you're perceiving it. Everything's in motion as it's arranging from one pattern into another pattern. So technically that card would be perfect for all 4 of us at the moment, actually, because we're letting go and we're not crystallized at the moment where everything is rearranging. Everything is rearranging. We're in that process. It has not crystallized yet. And to me, that's what is significant about it. It's not that it's chaos. It's just how we're seeing it as everything else. All the little iron filings are in the motion of moving into the new space, into their new pattern. That's kind of how I'm seeing it.
Indeed.
Very good. I feel like that's what we're doing on the show, like you guys said, but it's worth saying it again. It's exactly what we're going to be talking about.
Indeed. So this topic came up because, of course, Joe, he usually brings up a lot of things that we end up talking about on our shows. So that's not new. But he brought up, I think so here's what happened. I think he was inspired by the show we did, Over Sharon 116. And we were talking about the positive and the negative, like, when there's negativity or negative thoughts and like turning those things around and trying to find silver linings and trying to find the positive in things. So that's what inspired him to have some thoughts. And that's what inspired kind of all of us to do a panel together. So, yeah.
And it really feels like it's a topic right up the Over Sharon alley. We talk a lot about working on yourself and all this stuff. And what we're going to highlight today, I think, is a method that, it's worked for a lot of people. And again, you could choose whatever method works for you, but this one just seems to be very grounded and there's not a lot of bullshit behind it. And I like it because it's really like a do it at your own pace kind of thing. And everyone's going to explain it differently. Everyone has their own way to let go, like an internal feeling. I remember just seeing some of the chat that was going on in our chat where Sharon was like, I'm going to need more explanation on this, So, yeah, I think it's really in line with what we talk about. So it's perfect.
So I'll also preface all of this discussion by saying that Joe has been talking about this book, Power versus Force by Dr. David R. Hawkins, for a while now. And as much as it's been something I've wanted to read or listen to, because I do have access to the audiobook, I've just been reading and looking into so many other things. So it wasn't until kind of the last, I don't know, couple of weeks maybe, and I got this kind of impetus to actually okay, let me find the audiobook and let me listen to it. And so I started listening to it, and it was I'm probably still in the first chapter, but just even the intro and everything that he's talking about in the intro is like mind blowing, because he's talking about kinesiology, and he's basically saying we now have this scientific proof or this scientific measure for truth. And it's not, there's no like ifs, ands, or buts. It's not like, oh, maybe, or it is doable, and it's scientifically proven to be doable. And it's via kinesiology. So that already to me was like super mind blowing. And Dr. David R. Hawkins came up with this method for letting go. I guess I'm assuming, because I haven't read that book, but Joe knows that topic very well. So
Yeah.
we're kind of going to ask him too.
All right, we could start with David R.
About
Hawkins.
that.
Sure. Yeah, David R. Hawkins I discovered 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I used to listen to that guy Julian I shared with you. Maybe Brand's familiar with the RSD, the pickup artist.
Oh
There's
yeah,
Tyler and Julian. It's like a whole company that the company just all they do is like teach young men how to build up their self-confidence, because that's basically, they can't get women because they're like a mess inside. So basically it's about cleaning them up. That's what the whole company is about, more so than like just picking up women at clubs and whatnot. Especially with that guy Julian. But so I was just subscribed to some of these channels back then. And that was when I was doing all this occult stuff. And if you go back to the first over Sharon, because I don't have to go into it again, I guess, but if you go to the first over Sharon, I shared that experience where I guess the world would call it samadhi, where I no longer had I had a body, but it wasn't that relevant anymore. But so go back, and if you want to hear me talk about that, the first over Sharon, I did with these guys. But so I had that experience, and then I was like, when I came back home, I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, what was that? Because by the time I got home, then I was back, to my normal body separateness, whatnot. But I was like, what the fuck was that? And so I don't know, weeks later, on my subscription feed, I guess it was RSD Julian, or now he just calls himself Julian himself, the channel, popped up, and he was talking about David R. Hawkins and talking about the kinesiology and power versus force and letting go and all that kind of stuff. So I looked into David R. Hawkins. I watched some of his videos, and they were interesting, but I was like, all right, interesting. So I bought the book Letting Go, and I started reading that. Back then, I was a very, very avid reader. I was reading all the time. And I just got that book from Amazon. I cracked it open. I was reading it, hour every night before I go to bed. And I got to a part towards the beginning of that book where he described exactly what I experienced, because he experienced it himself. And it's not something you can fake, in my opinion. The things he said in such detail, the details he was explaining it in, you just couldn't know unless you were there. Like, I don't know how else to put it. But so I was like, holy crap, this is what this is. And then, and you read that book, and literally as you going through chapter by chapter, he's getting to the higher levels of consciousness about as you progress, letting go. I could feel like my heart chakra, I couldn't put that book down. I was like, because, it was like my heart was like lit up as I'm like reading this book. And I'm like, wow, this was one of the most important books I've ever read up to this point in my life. And then I read Power versus Force, because that's the first book that he wrote back in 96 or whatever. Letting Go was the book he put out, that was put out when he died. There's a whole thing with the whole Sedona method. No, technically it was Lester Levinson that taught everybody through the Sedona method how to let go, and he taught Hawkins and all that. And Hawkins found that to be the best method. But then we don't need to get into all the details, but Sedona method had the same fate as like transcendental meditation. A group took it over, copyrighted a bunch of stuff, threatened Hawkins if he put the book out, they would sue him, blah blah blah. So he's like, all right. And then literally the day he died, that book got published. So because he's dead, what are you gonna do? So
That's funny.
so
Love
yeah, so I read Power versus Force, and that was amazing as well. Like that was mind blowing because the things he was talking about in that book, I've experienced my whole life, but was never ever able to articulate something like something's energy, something's aura, something's patterns that are forming, stuff like that. They described through Power versus Force, and then even more detail in Truth versus Falsehood, which I think was like the fourth book or whatever, where literally he just got thousands of people together, did this kinesiology, calibrated all kinds of things, like thousands of calibrations in that book. The same thing with Power versus Force. When he discovered that through kinesiology, I don't know when he discovered it, but he wrote it. That's how he got his PhD. He already was a psychiatrist. He had a medical degree. He ran the biggest psychiatric hospital in all New York City. So you got to imagine he was good at what he did, and the things he probably experienced over the course of his career, and that being in that psychiatric hospital, running that place in New York City of all fucking places. But yeah, and he did his PhD on basically what's a condensed version of what's in Power versus Force, where he's like, all right, I understand it's not very objective if I just kinesiology myself, and there are flaws with kinesiology. Maybe we could talk about later because I got some experiences with that later. So he did his PhD thesis, and took thousands of participants, and first the levels of consciousness, where you can look up the scales of consciousness, that's been recorded throughout human history. We kind of know what kind of order they already were in terms of negative and positive, but he calibrated them. With thousands of participants, and said, okay, like shame is at 20 or whatever, and courage is at 200, and it's going to be arbitrary, a scale from 1 to 1,000. 1 being the lowest you can experience in the human realm, in the physical realm, and 1,000 being the highest consciousness that can be experienced in the human realm, which he claims that Jesus Christ, the Buddha, Krishna, Zoroaster were the only 4 that ever got to 1,000. Most people don't go that high. Apparently, at a certain point, your body can't even handle the amount of energy. It's just these stories about Jesus like sweating blood and being like tortured, or the Buddha with his bones breaking. This is that level of consciousness. The body wasn't meant to handle that kind of energy. But
you just turn into light after that.
Yeah, well, ideally, you probably don't want to have the body anymore. Some people do, apparently, and they're served a higher purpose for God, I suppose. Yeah. So I read all his books, front to back, all of them. I would say Power versus Force and Letting Go are the 2 best ones. I mean, they're all good, but the scale of consciousness, like I said, I've seen it in my own life. To me, it's undeniable. It's just in your face. It's just all these things that were kind of pointed out that you kind of had a vague idea, but you didn't know how to articulate. And then I read that book, I was like, holy shit, he fucking articulated it. This is it. Like, yeah. So yeah. But yeah, the man was, I believe, was enlightened. Truly was. There's very few people I could point to that, in my opinion, I would say reached that level. But yeah. So yeah. Is there anything specific I could add, or did you I know the man.
So do you remember? I'm gonna have Brandon share the map of consciousness if he can. I'll send it to him in
email
in the chat. But
in the chat, okay.
But I was gonna say, do you remember what it was in our discussion that in our discussion from episode 116, that where you were talking about like what inspired you, like what made you write that comment? I can't remember. Gotta
I
see
don't
what.
remember either, Sharon. I
Okay,
don't have
that's
that kind
okay.
of memory.
Spoons, do you remember anything about that?
We've had so much conversation the last couple of weeks. It's kind of hard to keep track of
That's
where
okay.
it kind of got started.
I
Yeah, that's
remember what
where.
I shared, but not why. No.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. I wanted to know what you shared, so I guess that's where I was getting at.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I discovered Hawkins back in 6 years ago or so. I immediately tried applying letting go, but I was very selective back then. I still was holding all kinds of, I don't know, theories and opinions and that I didn't want to let go of because I thought they were true. And like, I was like, my arrogance, whatnot. I didn't want to let certain things go. Like I will let like surface level things go and maybe pain if I was in a lot of pain. Because I found that that method does relieve pain. We can discuss it later. It goes way more than just relieving the pain. It literally makes it totally go away. Um, but back then, I was very, yeah, about it. I was kind of half serious, half not, but I was still working, trying to progress spiritually, whatever. Um, and it was, and yeah, in kinesiology, I'll just put that while I'm back in the
Back
past.
burner.
That first couple of years, I was messing with kinesiology a lot. You can ask Sandra about it. She was my partner. um, but I started to kind of make myself go literally crazy, like doing it, like because I was getting to the point where I was using it for divination, all kinds of weird things like
Going
dowsing
overboard,
or
yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and I was definitely on a negative kind of spiral. Yeah, the thing with dowsing can work just like kinesiology, but here's the thing with kinesiology: it will only work if if you can be totally neutral on the answer. If you have any invested interest, or the person that your partner, if they have any vested interest in the answer, you're just going to prove yourself right. That's one of the laws of consciousness.
Yeah.
It's like 100% in my face at this point. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. And even using kinesiology, if you have you want this to be true, it will be true. Or if your
Yeah.
partner messes with it, or
Oh, yeah.
false, whatever. However, if you can do this, and I'm not there yet, I'll be totally honest. Like, if you can do this and not care about the answer, you can get it answered directly from your spirit because if you don't have a charge for one
Hmm.
way or the other, you're literally getting strength from spiritual energy or it not being there. Because so if you can
Yeah.
be detached, you can make it work. Dowsing too, like that will work too.
Yeah.
But if you have to be honest with yourself, and
Yeah.
I found that in Hawkins' last book he wrote, he even said that he's like, well, maybe we're a little kind of naive to think that everybody can do it, and that that there aren't like problems, trip ups. Like first off, yeah, both you and your partner have to be over 200.
Yeah, that's what
So
I remember him saying
yeah,
that.
plus your intention and your partner's intention both has to be over 200 because you could be over 200 and still have a negative intention. It's like that's why I can't do
Yeah.
it. Like, and what else? He suggests not to use your partner, like your wife or your husband,
Oh,
for
because
some
you have that
reason.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah, he says it's best to find somebody who's not like you're not living with all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you have to be totally detached. And I have used kinesiology. That's why I know it works. I know it works because the things I don't care about, it worked. Like I forgot like when we were living in Calmoons, I asked I just went up to Sandra. I'm like, stick out your arm, and I'm like, okay, because we're waiting for the Croton wandering, the toads. They come out of the hills and then they go down to the river. Like I just wanted to find one torture center, but so I tested that, and I'm like, the Croton wanderings today, and it was no, all right, fine. I would ask periodically, and then the day her arm went straight, 'cause I literally don't give a shit when the toads are coming down from the hills. And sure enough, I went out as soon as the sun was going down. There's the toads coming down the hill. I'm like, oh, okay. There was another time I lost my keys. And I was like, all right, I don't, because my inside, I need to find these keys. I don't give a shit where they are. I'm not, obviously, my pride is not going to get in the middle of where my keys are at. Tested her. When I found out where the keys were, when I got the strong response, there were the keys. And many little stories like this. So yes, it does work, but you truly have to not care about the answer. And that's really hard. Like, that's really hard. And you have to really pay attention to your inner world and be like, all right, no, there's kind of a charge there. Until I can let that charge go, there's no point of asking.
Yeah, that reminds me of like on Instagram, I've seen those videos of people using the dowsing rods and, you know, asking the question, the dowsing rods, you know, do this for yes and this for no. And and they're asking like really, some of them are very polemic, very polarizing questions, right? And it's funny because, you know, they'll whatever, this girl will be like, was Jesus real or whatever? And then it'll be like, yes, or something. And then she'll be like, okay, thank you. And then she'll go on to whatever, all these other questions. And in my head, every time I saw that, I was like, we all have an energetic like body and there's energy around us. Could it potentially be that her energy is affecting what the rods are saying? Yes. Like, and so that you saying that you have to be neutral really makes that like that makes sense to me now. Like I was always just like, like couldn't she be affecting her? And even when I douse for myself and I use this, I'm like, am I like, is it really giving me the answer or is it me telling it what I want to answer? Like, is it doing what I want or is it really giving me the answer? So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And like, then you also, sorry, Brian.
I was just going to say, how dare
Will you remember your thought, Joe?
I'll remember it.
Okay.
All right. Oh, because this specifically has to do, it's just a quick thing. I was going to say that it really, so if it's true to the person, if they perceive it as true, I feel like then it is going to show up as true. It's as easy as that because, you know, we talked about how people, if they're sharing their own truth, and we talk about this in regards to like politicians, you know, so that's why we think sometimes these politicians really believe what they're saying and they're like in the game as much as the people who are voting for them are because they all believe it's real. So I think that's what would affect it. And like Joe said, it's a charge. You look at it just like energy. And I also want to say, Spoons, did you have anything to add to the conversation? Because I saw you look like you wanted to make a comment.
No, I'm still just kind of digesting all that's going on at the moment.
Okay, well, when Joe finishes telling us, just hopefully he remembers, you can tell us about how your dad uses dowsing rods and stuff like that. So go, Joe.
I was just going to finish with the kinesiology, the other things to talk about. Like you don't ask a question either. You make a statement. The wall is white. You don't ask, is the wall white? Because then you're asking the question, you're measuring the energy of the question. You're making a statement. The wall is white. Yep. You know, it's either white or not. Either the energy's there or it's not there. Like when you push.
Okay. Yeah.
And, like Brandon was saying, and to further upon that, yeah, that's the reason if you're under 200, it doesn't work, period, because your chakras are inverted, like literally. So your total, your meridians and all that are a total mess. Like, so literally, things that are bad can make you go strong, like really strong, because you're holding your arm up because of the charge inside. You're drawing from the force, like the power versus force. Everything under 200, those energies are polarized and they require force. Everything over 200 is quote unquote the spiritual energy, and it's just there. It doesn't have a polarization. There's no opposite. It just is. So that's what you're measuring over 200, and that's what you want to get the truth versus falsehood, because if you're measuring from those forceful energies, you're just polarized. You're not going to get anything. You'd be lucky, you know, if you could You'll be lucky if you get anything true. But so yeah, that's I guess all I can say about kinesiology. And so, like, yeah, if you're gonna mess with kinesiology, be honest with yourself. Like, be honest. You'll feel it inside. You'll feel the charge. Like you want it to be a certain result. Like, be
Yeah.
honest. Be like, all right, I got that charge. Never mind. Like, so yeah, and so I don't really mess with it too much at this point. Maybe someday after I feel internally like I truly can ask certain make certain statements integriously without a charge. Maybe I will attempt to do it, but I don't recommend trying to do it. And also, you can build up the spiritual ego too, because you'd be like, start measuring everybody's consciousness around you, and then measuring your own consciousness, which you'll never get your. That's another thing.
You'll never
According
get
to
your
Hawkins,
own.
at least you can never know your own calibration level because
Yeah.
immediately that's coming out of pride,
Ego.
ego. So immediately
Absolutely.
you're from an energy of like 190 or 180. So it's like, so, but
And
but yeah,
just I just want to reiterate for everyone, I think we said in the beginning, but 200, that level is the level of truth. So just so people, we can fall back around on that scale of 1 to 1,000 of consciousness.
Did you
To,
show this? Sorry, did you
oh,
open the link that I
I have
sent
it
in the
right here.
chat?
Yeah. So that's actually a good spot to bring
And
it in.
yeah, show it
Oh, see,
up.
Sharon, you know what you're doing.
And just quickly, I will share that when I was experiencing the whole fridge debacle, that I was asking if the fridge was really truly dead or if we really needed to get a new fridge. And the thing was, I wanted that fridge. Like, I was like, if that fridge still can work, like, great, but if not, then we'll need a new one. Well, I was like, I asked questions because I didn't know you're supposed to make statements. So I was like, is that fridge truly broken? Like, is it not repairable, basically, for more than what it is worth, And yeah, it was like, it's not repairable. And I was like, so should we get a new fridge? And it was like, yeah, you should get a new fridge. So I was like, okay. But yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily use it super properly, but it wasn't the answer I necessarily wanted. I wanted that fridge to be repairable, because that would have been easier than having to go through the whole mess of like ordering something new that you don't know if that's going to be working either, for how long, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a funny little interesting note.
Some good personal information,
Anecdotes.
anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
yeah,
So anyway, Joe, do you want to talk about this real quick, or Brandon?
yeah. So this is the scale of consciousness I was talking about. That's what one thing though, Sharon. If you're doing the audiobook, there's a lot of visuals in Power versus Force. So maybe you want to have.
I will also
Yeah,
I'm going to side by side read it,
yeah.
but like I also like to listen to something too but lately I try to get both so I can also go back and read anything I might have missed or just like um reiterate what I heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
But
guaranteed.
yeah,
If you
thanks.
didn't get something, there's probably a visual because you put tons of really good visuals in.
Okay, I
Um,
will definitely do that.
yeah. So this is the scale of consciousness, as you can see. 20 being shame, one of the lowest energies, and then all the way up to pure consciousness, which is 700 to 1,000, which is very, very rare in this world. Technically, the world considers 600 and above to be enlightened states, and there's not just one enlightened state. Like, there's not, when it comes to truth is in degree, it's not black and white. Like, all
Mm.
those forceful energies are polarized, black and white. But power is the higher you get up, you can think of it, it expands. Like, there's
Shades of gray.
a higher degree of truth, the higher you go, a higher degree, a higher degree, a higher degree, a higher context. So, something that is technically true at, say, 250 or whatever, is also true at 700 or whatever, but it's a lot. There's more of an expanded view. There's more of an expanded context upon that truth. So, there are higher truths, but it's in degree versus black and white, which would be everything that's in force. Um,
Do you
so
ever
yeah,
Sorry, I was gonna say, do you have an example of like something that you said like would be true at 250 but different and yet still true at 700, or I mean whatever you said.
Hmm.
Do you
That's
have
a
an
good
example of
question.
that?
If I could come up with one. Um, we'll say something is true in the 400s, which is just the range of the when people are integrous with their intellect. Like these are your integrous scientists and philosophers and stuff like that. But that they're more, about abstraction and logic and, seeing what's true from, say, the scientific method, right? Um, so you can work out all the logic. Say if this scientist was truly integrous with the method, and he had his theory or whatever, say it's at 460 or whatever, um, which is the high, according to Hawkins, the 460 is like the highest that science can take you. If you're truly integrous with your science, like 460 is about the max you could go.
Wow.
But so we'll say it's totally logical at 460, but you don't see truly why it's doing that. You're just seeing the logic and the structure at 460, and it's technically the logic and
Okay.
structure you're looking at is true, but you don't know the why, I guess. The what's really going on to make that happen. You're just observing, like science, you're observing, and then you're coming up with a hypothesis, testing it, and then coming with a
Yeah.
theory. So, but at the higher levels, say once you go into the 500s or above or whatever, then it starts becoming less linear. That's one thing. Once you get 500 and above, it starts becoming less linear. Like up until that point, it's linear. Like consciousness is linear. The way you're structuring things is very linear. And so, yeah, it could be true what the scientist is saying, but you look at it from a 500 perspective, and it's not really, it's looking at the big picture now. It's looking at all the nuance. It's looking at the whole context. So it's a higher truth. And if I could come up with a better example, I'll share it with you in a chat or
Brandon,
something.
can you
All I
bring
could come
that
up with
up
right now.
again so we could see it? Because I wanna what he said made me just like see something kind of interesting. So um if we look at what you were saying, like after 460, you said um it's it's all logic before that or around that. But beyond that, if you look at 500, it's loving. It's one. It's all beings. So like those those other things are like in the wise perspective, they're the logic and everything. Maybe that's wisdom and reason, right? But it hasn't reached the point of being loving
Yes, it has.
and one and joyful.
And love
Uh,
comes is nonlinear. It does. There's not a
yeah,
line.
exactly. And logic is very like factual and very like black and white in that regard. Like this is true, this is not true, right? And when you get
Yeah.
to love, it's not about that so much as it is yeah, it's different. It's hard to describe.
More about like a oneness, I think. When
Yes. Like that one,
you
like
get to love,
540 is one.
it's more of a merging.
Yeah.
Mm. Yes, exactly. That's a good way to
It's
put
like
it, Brian.
yes and no, Brandon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can also look at the
No.
400s, kind of cherry picks the logic to explain something, because the logic, just how my room is structured is so complex. Like when you're doing science or you're going through logic, you just can't explain everything. You literally have cyclopedias about the topic, so you have to narrow it down to just one part of the logic. But as you're going higher into the consciousness and becoming nonlinear, you can see all the patterns, all the
Hmm.
logic to it, like because you're not just like cherry picking one piece, which is just we have to do that so we can communicate. Um,
Yeah.
it's just the way it is because we use language to communicate, and that's linear. So if you're going to unpack something in its total truth, it literally could be a whole library just for that one topic. But we do our best with logic and reason to pick the best pattern, I guess, to explain the logic to it.
Yeah. Well, I think we can remove this unless anyone has any comments about that. So, spoons, do tell us about your, I suppose, your experience with dowsing and stuff like that. I think you told me once that your father has done that.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing because my dad is kind of very much, if you try to talk to him about occult type things, that's a no-go. But
But
he
yet he
uses
knows how to
dowsing
douse.
rods. Like you can pretty much ask him to look for whatever and he can find it with dowsing rods. Like he'll find if there's a water leak out in the and you have to find which part of the line it's in, he can go with his dowsing rods and find that for people. Um, it's he's used it to look for different kinds of bolts or whatever if he's working on taking something apart and he loses something, just whatever. You can use it for so many different things. So yeah, I always think it's interesting because I have to be very particular in how I ask certain questions because I don't want to spark something to cause a fight.
Trigger him, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much knowledge and things that he understands, but he doesn't want to view it in a certain viewpoint because
Right.
of the religion
Right.
background, kind of.
I wonder, I was just thinking to myself as you were talking about that. It's very because he has this neutrality and he can find stuff. He has no issue. Like he doesn't care. But it's like once you put the woo-woo in there,
Right.
it makes it like it would be maybe change his view on it. And so now maybe it wouldn't be neutral for him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he knows he
Yeah.
can find it and there's, it, but he doesn't have the woo of it. So he's very neutral about it. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Yeah, there's a lot of background stuff with that. We have a lot of Native American ancestry. Like my granddad was full blooded, and so there's all this stuff, but they never talked about any of it. And I finally talked to my dad about that a little bit, and he's like, "Yeah, we know his dad never talked about any of the stuff." So it's like there's all this woo-woo kind of stuff associated with Native American things, and yeah, it's just all of the stuff that can't be talked about, and it's so frustrating at times. But like I say, sometimes I find ways to ask questions around it and get certain information. So
yeah,
but I kind of want to go back to something that Joe said earlier about the negative charge having so much power. And maybe that's why we're kind of unwilling to let go of certain things because we know that the power that has. I think that must be a big part of this letting go process and why it's so difficult, whether it's positive or negative. I hadn't really thought about the negative aspect giving you so much power, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. And yet anything above whatever that number was, Joe said, is sorry. So the power, sorry, I think you meant the force because the below the negative is the force and the positive is the power. So it's not real power. It's more like it's like a forceful energy. So that negativity has that force, but it's not true power.
Right. Yeah, I probably used the incorrect word there.
It's okay. I understood what you meant, but I also had to think, oh, yeah, sorry, she means force.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was using a different context than the power versus force thing. What I understand what she's saying. It's this charge. Yeah, you can think of it like this. It's like, those bicycles that you have the light bulb on, like you power the light bulb by going, the faster you go, the more it lights up. That's kind of how those energies are. Like the harder you're going at it, the more quote unquote power or whatever the light you're getting from
wattage.
Yeah, and it makes us feel alive. The truth is,
Mhm.
we love these energies. We don't want, we like to say we don't, but trust me, we do on a certain level. We wouldn't have them if we didn't like them. So they make us feel alive. We get shit done with them. Like
Mhm.
we perceive
Joe.
that they're serving us. So that's one thing I noticed, that if you're stuck, if you can just kind of contextualize it as best you can, hold it kind of lightly in mind, be like, I actually like this, and then you start realizing you're telling the truth, and then things start rolling faster because then you're like, and then it becomes easier. Like, yeah, I actually do kind of like this energy. It's like this kinky thing going on that I'm torturing myself with, but I kind of like it, or I wouldn't be doing it right now. And the people that are under 200, especially, they live there. They live there. That's
Mhm.
their existence. Like, all they do is power those charges all day, every day, to the detriment of their health and to society and their spirituality and all that. But
If you
so
could turn
yeah,
up your mic just a little bit, Joe, because when you're animated, I can hear you, but when you're just doing your normal voice, it's very quiet. So,
all right. Well, I'm maxed out at the
oh,
moment, so
okay, all right. Well,
I just
Be
did
more
max it
animated.
out, but now I'm
just
maxed.
just stay close to the mic and stay animated.
All right, we'll do.
But sorry, I did interrupt you, whatever you were saying. So,
Oh no, Brandon was saying something.
Oh no, I was just saying be more animated, but I do like what you're saying because it makes so much sense. And I feel like that's probably why most people remain in that energy under 200. It's what we learn, most of us anyway, what we're born into. And it kind of reminds me of my, the mind slave thing, the mind slavery, where, we're in this country, there's a lot of people, you could say we're kind of like debt slaves or whatever, but it's just a slavery of our own mind. And we've talked about this a lot, but this could correlate with that perfectly because I could see people that live under 200 all the time. They're going to be a lot easier to take advantage of and, get to work in your pyramid scheme or whatever that you
Mm.
have going on because they're going to look for that outside validation all the time. It's probably helps power or probably helps juice up their force, the validation and all that stuff. So I like that dividing line. It's interesting. And I think also because like you were saying, Joe, you can't calibrate your own number. And I think that's good because it would lead again to more people being like, oh, I'm a 600, I'm a this, I'm a that. And I
There's
don't feel
tons
like,
of them.
yeah, oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, it would lead to more people doing it, right? But hey, I'm sure there's people that claim it. But I feel like throughout the day, we just go up and down, moment to moment, no matter like whatever we're thinking about or whatever we're doing, our level of consciousness is going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. Like we could
Yeah.
be meditating and having all this great stuff. And then we walk outside and someone, we get cut off in traffic and then we're at like a 20, it's like,
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that we're measuring your baseline, like where you're at. We'll think of it like the carrier wave that the everything else is riding upon, I guess.
yeah,
Um, but technically, from what I understand, everything below a certain level in the 900s, you're going to experience these negative energies. Like, I guess from what I understand, once you start going above 700, you start taking on the collective instead of the individual, because the individual negative energies are gone. But since you become, quote unquote, enlightened, so to speak, you become the field that is everybody, which I can
oh,
speak to myself. And then you start taking on the collective negative energies all the way up into like Christ, so to speak. Makes perfect sense, to me at least. But I forgot my train where I was going with that.
that's okay.
But oh yeah,
I
so yeah, you're
Go
going
ahead.
to experience these negative. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah, so you're going to be experiencing these negative energies regardless throughout the day. It's just that you're not going to experience them as less frequent. I guess you could put it like that. You experience them less frequent, less frequent, less frequent the higher you go. But they're always going to be there. Like that video you were talking about in the last over Sharon that I shared. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is the truth, isn't it? It's like it's built into our brain. And even if we can instantly release it, like it's still going to arise from time to time. So, but you
Yeah.
don't live there, and that's not your way of
N
being. That's not
Normal
your
vibe.
consciousness.
Yeah.
That's not the field that is carrying you at the moment.
Yeah.
But you can still experience all those things. Just because you're in the 500s or whatever, it doesn't mean you're not going to experience that. It's just going to be less frequent than somebody would be lower. And then the people that are below that 200, they literally live in those energies all the time. And allegedly that's supposed to be 85% of the population. Was they did that measurement when they did true versus falsehood, like I don't know, 15 years ago, whatever it was. 85% of the world was below 200. And in America, which is the highest level nation on the planet. Anyway, I digress. But
Allegedly.
In the
Let's just say that.
wild.
no, I see it. I've traveled the world. It's true. But like so yeah, America would be like, now I lost my train of thought again. But yeah, America would be the highest collective consciousness, the highest government technically.
You said the world it was 85% below
Oh yes,
200.
80. In America, it's like 50-50. Or back then it was like
Oh,
51% was over 200 and 49 was below. So,
okay.
flip a coin, like, or, see somebody, four people out there, statistically, two of them are going to be below 200, just
Okay.
people walking in public or whatever.
Interesting.
And, even though I don't use kinesiology, I don't care what people calibrate at. I literally don't care anymore. But, I can feel if somebody is above or 200. I don't know their
Or
exact
below.
number or whatever. I don't care. But at least at that line, I can feel somebody's below the line or above the line. Like it's just I've always been able to feel it. Like unless I was in a really gross state, and then
Yeah.
I was vibing with those people.
Low
But
vibe.
yeah, but when the shoe fits, you don't feel it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But but like
If
yeah,
the shoe fits you, wear it.
I like I could feel it because those energies literally or have a heaviness to them, a pull downward almost,
Oh
a
yeah.
sensation of such. And when people above 200, you don't get that. So immediately, when I'm starting to talk to somebody, I can feel the vibe. I'm like, all right, this person, you know, just be nice. Just be
Right.
nice. Don't try to explain anything. Don't,
Don't comment. Just
yeah, like just, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, what I was saying like a lot earlier, and I don't want to take over the whole show either, but I'll just why we're doing this panel. Like yeah, so I discovered all this stuff 6 years ago, did it really half-assed, still was kind of spiritually progressing, and then 2020 happened. And when 2020 happened, the first month, I guess, I was still trying to be kind of positive. And then when 2 weeks passed and we were not just 2 weeks to flatten the curve anymore. I was starting to like, what the fuck? Because it's obviously at this point it's bullshit. Like there's, and we're not walking over dead bodies in the street. Like I knew at this point, I know a bunch of people have had it. It's literally a cold and some are asymptomatic. So, okay, you're not sick, but you're sick. Like, and on and
so
on.
you're not sick,
So,
but you don't want me to see your face. Okay. It's all good.
so yeah, so about a month into it, I was like, all right, I'm not, obviously everyone around me has went insane. The whole world's went insane. Sandra was the only one around me that was still level headed at all. And maybe because I vibe or rub off on her a little, I don't know, but it's just, so I started looking back into the truth community, and was not in the truth community since, I don't know, 2017. I bailed a long time ago. I was like, this is just a waste of fucking energy. Like, most of these people suck. I don't want to be here. Like, and I left. But like 2020 came around, I started looking at, who else would know what the fuck's going on, who would be looking into it. So I started looking into the truth of shit. Well, what is David Icke saying? What is this person saying? What is this person saying? Blah, 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 blah. And, and then I wound up finding, that
Us.
community. Yeah. Meeting Alex through the community we all know. And met all you guys, and that part was great. I'm grateful for it. I think the
Oh
corona,
yeah.
all in all, was a blessing. Like it really was,
Absolutely.
and it was unavoidable. Unavoidable. I think it was written into the fucking script. It was one of those things that was going to happen no matter
It
what.
had to.
Yeah. So
Everything happens for a reason.
so yeah, so I met all you guys and Alex and all that, and that part was great. But and I started listening to it over Sharon, and I still this you guys are the closest thing you could. I don't even know to call you guys truthers, but like you're the closest thing. You're the only one kind of program like that on my whole subscription list at this point. Like I had nothing to do with any of that anymore. But like
Thank you. I really do. We do appreciate it.
yeah. But well, I don't really consider you guys truthers either, but you know what I mean. But it's
Yeah, I
just
know.
but like yeah, so I got deeper and deeper into that and theorizing, listening to content creators and talking to people online
It
and on and
sucked you
on and
back
on.
in, right?
Yes, literally. As soon as you're out, they pull you back in,
Yeah.
And like like
I get reeled into conversations I probably shouldn't get myself reeled into sometimes.
yeah, I got reeled in, watching all these content creators, my YouTube was mostly that kind of thing again, like um and I was making music at least at first, and I still was kind of more positive than negative, I guess, but the more time went progressed, as the years progressed into the Corona thing, I would say by 2020, I was definitely in a fucking spiral, like, and I was becoming depressed and upset, and like I just people are so stupid. Like, why am I on this planet? Why am I being punished? Like, kind of deal, victimy kind of shit. And like, I every now and then I would watch myself on the oversharing because I don't watch myself. I don't care. I don't like. I'm not a person that likes to listen to myself
But you
talk,
had to
believe it
see
or not.
the
Yeah.
re-upload, the premiere.
So yeah, so I would watch the show and I'll be like, oh, it was a good show, a really good conversation. But I'm like, I would notice that kind of like negative energy poking at me. And I like, and because I know it's me, like I know what was going on at the time. And I'm like, yeah, And when Brandon, Jeff, and I did the Full Metal Jacket episode, like one diving into that shit again because I hadn't really thought too much about the military for a while, and then watching Full Metal Jacket again, all this shit started rising from the
Oh my
fucking
God. I can
cellar, and I'm
imagine.
like, and even watching myself on the episode, it was a good episode. I stand by most of what I said, and I still recommend people check out the episode. But I could notice that there is pain, like, and I'm like, and then watching that, I'm like, there's pain, dude. Like, I can't deny this anymore. Like, there's something going on with me. And I'd bring it up to you guys, and you'd be like, oh, don't be hard on yourself. I'm like, it's not about being hard on myself. I recognize there's a problem, like, and I know I have to do something about it, and and also, backtrack a little. I know we were going to talk about this a little. This was happening about April, May, when all that electrical storm shit was going on, and the aurora borealis was covering the world, and all these weird things were going on with the sun and its frequencies, and like, obviously there was a lot more electricity in the air at the time. And what it looks like to me is that all those negative charges, those force charges that are inside of us, got fucking turned up, like amplified. And that's why a lot of people went fucking crazy during that time, or a lot of people got sick. But it also seemed, at least for us, to look at ourselves honestly and be like, I don't want this anymore. Like, and at least that's how I feel. And I'm talking to you guys, you seem to feel the same. So there definitely was something going on in this realm, electrical wise, that I think ramped up the negative energies. Like, and it made crazier. The crazy people go crazier. The stupider get stupider. Like, but like those of us that still had the intention to progress, I think
We
literally that I think
detoxed.
that was yeah, that was kind of like the wake up call, I guess you could say, or like they call it there's rock bottoms. They say there's a deep rock bottoms where you just hit the bottom and you just let go out of complete exhaustion, or there's shallow bottoms where you just recognize there's a problem and then you're like, I got to do something about this.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
a shallow bottom, to be honest. And um, before I don't know if I should keep going. Maybe I could turn over to you guys for a little while.
Those
So,
rock bottoms are good. Spoon, sounds like you want to say something.
Well, I was just thinking back to like April, May. I know I had a couple of bouts of sickness that happened. And one of the things I can kind of relate to that is I had a road trip with our friend Michelle Albers. And, we spent 2 weeks and kind of went to two different conventions and had some meetups along the way and some fun times. And there was all these great opportunities and things that I got opened up to. And there was this super high from this trip. And then I got back home and you have to process all of this stuff. And it's like, oh, I see all these opportunities and I actually even see the ways to get to them. But I also see that it's going to take time. And there's these other steps I've got to take in the meantime to get to that. And I think just kind of unwrapping all of that and going from this high back down, I don't know. I feel like certain problems that I was having as to why I couldn't advance further revealed themselves to me. And so I got to sit with that and process it. And then, of course, I ended up having detox after that. I had a lot of throat issues, fever, the whole kind of get up. And it's interesting when you release certain things in that letting go process, what the body will actually do after it affects. And for me, I guess in April and May, it was mostly like the lymphatic systems were affected. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. So.
And I would say that shortly after, so like in June, everybody knows everything that happened to my mom. Well, not everybody, but what happened to my mom, and then me being in the hospital with her helping, and then me like having to detox as well, because I encountered, energies that for whatever reason got me to be in a negative state as well. And then I had to detox as well. And that was also kind of lymphatic, but also like sinus related. And I wanted to ask Joe in a little bit, but all these things are just there to me. They're like a level up. They're like a healing of the body because of the letting go, because you're recognizing certain things that you needed to let go and you let go of them. And then this is kind of what happens in some cases. You have a physical letting go of negative energy. And I won't speak too soon, hopefully, but I feel like I have healed a cavity. And I have a little story that I could tell, but I wanted first to hear from Joe because he prompted my realizing kind of this whole concept. And he shared a story in our chat about how he was able to reverse some things that he had been experiencing physically in his body. And that to me was very encouraging and very just proof that healing your whatever you want to call them, wounds or anything, that negative feelings in your body, healing those things will bring health back to your body. So I will say that, and then I'll ask Joe to talk about his healing.
All right. So where I left off is all right. I realized I had to do something and that desire set off synchronicities. Because that's the thing, whatever you put out there is what synchronicities are. Synchronicities have nothing to do with truth or falsehood. They literally just what the thinker thinks to prove or proves, and the universe will help you. It will help you discover truth, or it'll help you get farther up your own ass. It doesn't care. But so I started to want to change, and the first thing that came to me, and it was a weird synchronicity because I was kind of half baked working on my channel, but I didn't really want to. But I was kind of inspired one day. I wanted to find a quote from David Lynch, the famous director, producer, and he was talking about transcendental meditation, and he said something that hit home to me because I haven't worked on my music really seriously for probably almost a year since I got back from the States last year. And I just, I was like, whatever, I don't feel like doing it or whatever. But like he said something like, okay, the negativity poisons the artist. It poisons your creativity. It blocks you from the eternal field where creativity comes from. So meditation could help clean you out. And I was like, that hit home for me. I'm like, yes. One thing I am noticing is I'm letting my mind kind of do what it wants to do. I used to have a meditation practice, I was meditating in beginning of 2020 even. But then I was like, fuck meditation. Every now and then I'll be in the woods and I'll sit there and do a little meditation, but I don't have a daily practice kind of thing. But yeah, my mind kind of lost direct. I don't know how to put it. It didn't have that single pointedness anymore. It was like all over the place. And so, yeah, I started doing the meditation. That was back in May. I think even before we did the Full Metal Jacket episode. And I was doing transcendental meditation for, I don't know, the first month or so. And then I realized, let me maybe try another different method of meditation, because what this keeps doing is eventually I kind of just burn the mantra into my brain, and then I'm not focusing on it anymore. It's just like a song you got stuck in your head that's playing in the background kind of thing, and I'm like, all right, I don't think I'm meditating anymore. So I was like, okay. Then I changed it up and I started doing a mindfulness meditation where I just focus on pure awareness, and I just bring myself back to the infinite silence. That's the foundation of us all. Where our true self is, where everything's arising from. So that's the meditation I'm doing now. But anyway, a couple months of meditation, I started getting the single pointed of mind again, and then I started thinking about David R. Hawkins again. Other than sharing some stuff with you guys, it's been many years since I was reading his books or watching his content or anything like that. But so then that came back up to my mind. I'm like, oh, the letting go thing. And because as I was becoming more single pointed in mind, I was noticing all this stuff going on inside. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember reading about this from Lester Levinson, David R. Hawkins, and all that. Like this needs to be released because these are the clouds that are blocking the sun. That infinite silence, that the light of God, so to speak, is coming from within. The only reason you're not in quote unquote enlightened right now, or of a higher consciousness, is because you think of all these charges creating clouds, and you don't have to make the sun shine because it's already shining. You just got to get rid of the clouds, man. And so I started releasing stuff again. I watched some Hawkins videos, Lester Levinson videos, Julian videos, kind of getting my attention going to. That's why I said to you the other day, you have to use the intellect at first because that's what you know how to do. But eventually, it's got to be a little more experiential. Like you got to start looking at your inner world and playing around with it. And I started releasing things, and there was one in particular that was really dark energy. It came out of nowhere. I rose, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to stay with this energy. It was really dark. I don't even know I guess you could call it shame, or it just when I started juicing that energy, I noticed the mind would tell a lot of lies, like straight up lies, like and then I'm like, whoa, that's obviously a lie. It's not even a white lie, it's a blatant fucking lie. And then I'm like, and every time that energy was getting juiced, it was doing that. So I was like, all right, this is some weird energy. So I just let it kind of come up, and it took a couple hours to finally fizzle itself out. But in the process, I felt like I was going through an exorcism or something like that. Every time it would hit my throat, I'd be like, I'm like, oh my God, or like sweating and like all kinds of things going on in the body. And then by the time it finally fizzled out, I felt exhausted. I was kind of at peace because it was gone. The sun shined out a little more. But I was just exhausted physically. And then the next morning I woke up, I had a scratchy throat and I got sick. And even even when I got sick, I was like, all right, my nose is running, and then you resist it, right? Like you're like, oh, I don't want my nose to run or my eyes to water. And then I was like, you know what? Forget it. Just let it happen. If my nose runs, it runs. If my eyes water, it waters, whatever. I just go drew more tissues. Who cares? And luckily this is like right on as the weekend was coming in. So I was like all Saturday, when I was awake, I would release on the sensations of the cold, and then I would sleep as much as I possibly could. And then the next Sunday, I was already 80% better. And then by Monday, I was totally healthy again. Quickest a cold that ever came to me, because this one was really intense when it started. Like usually I would have be sick for a week. This took a day and a half maybe. And like um so that was one experience. And then I've also had, since I got out of the army, or even the last few months I was in the army, like I had like pain, like in my like it could be my hip or my groin or sometimes even my chest, and a lot of swelling, like just discomfort, straight up pain. A few times over the years, over the decade, I had to be hospitalized and they had to shoot me up with morphine because I couldn't move without screaming. And when it was really bad, I couldn't walk. Like if it was in my hip or my groin, I couldn't walk. And then in 2020, like I was at work and there's some swelling and a little bit of pain going on, but they had me doing something physically laborious at my work. And I turned, and since everything was swollen together and like kind of like in one piece, like my hip and my back and all that, when I turned, I literally fractured. Spoons was in the medical thing, whatever that bone is in your groin, like that bone in your leg. Like I
Mhm.
literally splintered, like fractured it, like because I turned picking up a package and went like, and then it swelled up, and they counted it as a work accident. So I had to go to a special doctor that was specialized in like work accidents, and because I had to get written sick, so I get paid. And like this doctor was, because for years they were just telling me like, okay, we on an MRI we see some swelling, but we don't know what it is. And then when I have to go to the emergency room, they like I don't know what this is. Like, are you faking it? Are you sure you're not just trying to get drugs? I'm like, you really think I'm trying to get fucking drugs right now? Like and and so that went on for fucking a decade, and like cycles where it get worse, it get better, it get worse, it get better. I found like doing yoga and being physically active, working out, stuff like that would make it better, but it would keep it more flexible, but it was still cycle, get worse, get better, get worse, get better throughout the whole year. And so in 2020, yeah, when I hurt myself at work, the doctor obviously seeing me was like, "Oh, this dude is not fucking faking it." Like literally, I couldn't move. Every time I moved, I would scream. Like Sandra was out in the waiting room. She said like they could all hear me screaming, like
Wow.
and just screaming in fucking pain. Like it was just so to the point where I sometimes make me pass out. It was so bad. Like and like um the doctor was like, "How long has this been happening?" I'm like, I since like the 2012, I guess." And like, and
Years,
he's like,
decade
"And they don't know
almost.
what it is." And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Let's take some blood work." And they did some blood work and they checked for genetic markers as well as like my immune system or whatever they check, and white blood cells or whatever. And they realized my immune system was going haywire, and they realized I had from a medical standpoint, I had some sort of rheumatoid arthritis in my spine, and when it would swell, it would inflame the nerves, like in the hip or where I couldn't walk, or the groin, or sometimes it was up here. The worst pain I've ever experienced in my life when I went to the emergency room and they shot me from morphine was when it was swollen like between the shoulder blades and my chest. For 2 weeks, I couldn't sleep. Like I like every time I would move, I would wake up because it felt like a lightning bolt shot through my body. Like, and Sandra's like, "You gotta go to the hospital." I'm like, "They can't do anything for me. What the fuck am I gonna go to the hospital for?" Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And then eventually, I'm like, "Fine, just bring me. At least they'll shoot me up with morphine or something so I can fucking sleep." And yeah, she brought me to the hospital, and but anyway, that was back then. But it like, yeah, this doctor, I wouldn't, because the accident, like he found out, okay, you have some sort of autoimmune thing going on. That's what's going on, and that was such a relief just to hear that. Oh my god, I know what it is. Like, I know what it is because you fuckers would tell me I was faking it for fucking a decade, and
Yeah.
it's like, and yeah, but and so I even when I knew what it was, it still was going through these cycles throughout the year. Like I said, I'd stay fit and do yoga and stuff like that and keep flexible, and that helped. But I was noticing, like as I was releasing over the last couple months, that oh, I could release on this too, because you can release on any sensation, a feeling like emotion or a pain or any sensation on the skin, whatever. You can release on anything. You can even release on getting high. Like every now and then, I like to smoke a little weed, and like once it became habitual to let stuff go, I would even notice that that little euphoric, tingly feeling that when you smoke weed, that what you call your high. If you release on that, like it takes me 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'm totally clear again if I start releasing on it. I could literally release on the feeling of being high and make it go away, which is kind of a waste of weed, I guess. But
Yes.
but it can be done. And then it brought me back when that happened and I had that experience. I was like, wait a minute, now it makes sense. Remember Ram Dass? He said his
Yes.
girlfriend
I
took
was
a
just
handful of
thinking that.
LSD.
Yes, I was just
And
thinking about that.
it makes sense to me that if you're in a state of consciousness where you're instant releasing stuff, like you're in a enlightened state and you
Yes.
just everything as it arises, you immediately release it. If he's not
Wow.
resisting the LSD, you're not going to trip. Like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
thinking back to my psychedelic experiences, I was resisting nonstop and it was making the trip more intense. Like, so, literally, and I do this with nicotine too. I'm in the process of cutting down on smoking, and the same thing nicotine gives, or caffeine gives you, like you're adding like this feelings to your consciousness, so to speak. And that's what made me want to like really seriously to cut down on coffee and cigarettes, is because every time I would let go, the first thing I would have to do is get rid of all the layers of the substances I'm just putting on my body. And which comes off as like a nervous energy to me for both
Yeah.
nicotine and caffeine.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and like I said, weed, you could release that feeling too. I can literally be totally sober in about 20 minutes. Like, but so yeah, I was starting to release on the pain, and it was getting, it was linger. I let it float there and allowed it to do its thing. And over the course of a few days, it was getting better and better and better, and to the point where I didn't feel it at all anymore, like at all. Like, and my posture, like corrected itself, and everything in my body just corrected itself. Like I didn't have to force it. Like it just with the pain, the sensations being released and the pain being released, and there's a lot of emotions I noticed that were stuck down there as well. All this anxiety and shame, all kinds of stuff going on. Most of the time, I don't even know what it is really. Like, I can't even tell you, oh, this is grief or shame, whatever. But it's just, I kind of have to guess and feel it out. Like, it's got a certain tone to it, but I don't really even know what it is. But I just keep releasing it. Everything that comes up, I release it. I release it. I release it. And yeah, I'm at the point now where, knock on wood, I don't have an issue. I mean, I wake up a little stiff in the area every night when I wake up in the morning, every now and then, still some days. But maybe it's getting to the point where where at the top of the cycle it used to be extreme pain. Now it's just the mild whatever at this
Discomfort.
point.
Yeah.
And then when the cycle goes down, there's nothing now,
Yeah.
because there was always something. It
Yeah.
was just a matter of degree, how bad it was. Is it just tightness, is stiffness, or is it straight up pain? But yeah, and so I started noticing that, and that's cleared up. It seems to have. Um, Maybe I still got some things to release. I know I do, but I'm 100% sure this could be healed. And I self-imposed this on myself. This is not a genetic thing, or from vaccine damage, or all these other theories I thought of. Yeah, because they nailed me with so many vaccines in the army. I was like, maybe they fucked up my immune system. But even if
Maybe
they did,
you allowed that thought,
yeah,
and
yeah, even if
allowing
they
that
did,
thought,
yeah. Even if they did, it doesn't fucking matter, because I can fix it. Well, I can't fix it. God fix it. I mean, that sounds like, oh, you're just being woo woo. People are like, oh, it's God. But no, this is literally what's happening. I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm just releasing these charges I was holding on to and juicing and suppressing. And I'm just letting them go. And they're literally, if you just stop doing anything to them, they literally leave on their own. They literally start dissipating and floating a fucking way. So what does that tell you? God doesn't want them there. And because the moment you surrender them to the field, it literally does all the work for you. Like, it's you that are forcing yourself into your ego, into whatever situation, which is basically what the Course of Miracles was saying the whole time. Like, because I every now and then I'll for intention purposes, every now and then I feel I should pray or whatever, or I don't do the book in order anymore like I did to lesson 200 something like many years ago. But now I just flip to a random lesson and read it, and it's all in there. It's all in there. Like it's just if you just allow God to do what He wants to do anyway, God's will. If you just allow it and stop getting in the way, stop getting in your own way, it literally heals yourself. Everything heals by itself. Everything goes away by itself. You establish your own equilibrium, and God establishes an equilibrium and balance towards you. Because as far as I can tell, and I've had many experiences at this point where it really feels like we are our true higher self is dreaming this reality up. Like in that samadhi experience, there's a sensation that something's dreaming up. And I've had that experience in meditation and shit before, the quote unquote Godhead. Like I understand why they use that terminology. Like there is a sensation like you are being dreamed up by, I don't know, God anyway. And your quote unquote Dharma and all, there's already seems to be a script. There's already a perfect you. Everything's perfect. And you're going to be completely happy because God made you loving and happy. And it's real, but you have free will. So you can say, no, I'm going to change this here. I want it like this. I want it like this, and take control over it and create these inner universes that while this gravity is pulling you kind of away from it to a degree. But the minute you start letting all that shit go, it goes back to that state, that pure consciousness, your dharma. It's clear as day. I can see it. It's so cool, actually. Yeah. So and I do say yes, you need to have intention. And meditation probably could help. And maybe there are people that never did a meditation, but as far as I can tell, all the people who were enlightened or reached sainthood or whatever, they had a long meditation practice. They might not have. They did it till they're done, so to speak. But they, from years or decades, they had a meditation practice. And I understand now, I wouldn't be able to let certain things go if I couldn't keep a little bit of a one-pointedness of mind. If my mind was going all over the place like it was, how am I going to stay with something and feel and experience it out? But other than that, it's really just letting go and surrendering to God and letting God do His job, because He's trying to do it at all fucking times, but we're just not letting Him. Yeah, I'll turn it over to you guys. I need to.
It's funny that you said all the stuff you said, because some of the stuff you said, I was like, I was just gonna say that. Or Brandon was gonna say that. Like the Ram Dass stuff, and the guru and all that. And then when you said it's already perfect, you're already perfect. Brandon just told me that yesterday. Remind me, Brandon, what were you saying about that?
Yeah, it goes perfectly with what Joe was saying. And this is what I was listening to this Alan Watts lecture. And he was saying that there is nothing to do. He said all religion and a lot of the spirituality and gurus and stuff are based on this one-upmanship. It's, you're sitting around, you see somebody else that's doing something better. They're more enlightened, they're more whatever. And then you're like, I got to be like him. And he's like, you don't have to. You already are perfect. You're just standing in your own way. And the way that it made sense to me was you can use all kinds of different analogies. But say if you have somebody like myself, years ago, I was overweight and I would try all different things. But what worked the best for me was when I started meditating and I started to accept myself and I started to actually love myself more. It just went away. All those things just fall away from you as you can accept them. But when you look at yourself in the mirror and you have a really bad body image and you're like, oh, I wish my nose was different, or I wish, I have a part here that doesn't exactly grow in, and I'm like, fuck, it's not even. And I look, but if I just accept it, yeah, one of my eyes opens more than the other one is higher.
I'm not symmetrical.
Yeah. So you have all these things in the way I've heard Ram Dass say, to put it back to what he says, is if you go to a forest, you're walking through a forest, you don't point at one tree and you're like, oh, that tree's ugly. Why does that tree look that way? Yeah. Right.
Why did his arm grow crooked?
Why did that tree grow that way and around that one? And I find that when I find a tree that grew a different way, or around another tree or whatever, it's actually cool. I'm like, wow, look at that. It's something to look at, and could even be a symbol of nature for us to study. But I really feel like
it's just a growth pattern that tree needed to go through, that growth pattern to get around an obstacle. And that's what happens to us. Maybe we needed to grow out of around an obstacle
to make a beautiful forest, right? So this tree, exactly what you said, but it's part of now this beautiful forest. So you wouldn't just look at the forest and be like, oh, that one tree. But the problem is we're all the trees individually, and we can only see ourselves. That's our point of view. That's our consciousness. It sits, especially here around the 200 or under 200. We have this way of looking at things like we are the center of the whole universe. And it really is just an inversion, because if you look at it the other way, technically we are the center of the universe. But when we put our needs and our wants and the things that we want and our desires first, and we come at it from that way, it's just an inversion. But really the thing is, and that's why it falls in with letting go, because you're just letting go of all this pain. And like we've been saying this whole episode, all this discomfort and pain, it's really comforting to us. Like they say, misery loves company. We love our victim status, because if we looked at why we're a victim, then we're not the reason why we're in this situation, right? If we could find any way that we're the victim, then it takes all the responsibility off our shoulders, in our mind anyway, right? And puts it on something else. So if you just start to let this stuff go and see that you already are perfect, and it is really hard to do. And I think meditation is a really good practice for this, and it's just because it quiets down your mind. And meditation means it really is just one pointedness of mind, and however you're going to get there, it looks different for everybody. Some people, they count their breath. Some people, the transcendental meditation where you just repeat things over. This one thing that Alan Watts mentioned in that lecture I was talking about was the way he does it is he'll just sit there and focus on one of his senses, and he also keeps his eyes open. And he's like, when you start, it's easier to close your eyes, but after you get going, it's better to look at it. And if the sense that you choose that day to work on is your eyesight, you just focus on what's in front of you, and you just don't name things. He said the problem is a lot of us, we get caught in a symbolic reality instead of the real reality. We have names for everything and labels, and we just see everything as it is. We see everything as we label it instead of seeing it as it really is. This is a good experiment you can do. If you spend a lot of time seeing a person, say it's a family member, and you only see them every once in a while, next time you look at them, really study their face. This happened to me a few years ago with my youngest brother. I used to see him as my little kid brother, like all the time. I wouldn't even really look. But one day, I don't know, I was probably like meditating a lot that day, or maybe really high, or who knows. But I was looking at him like, wow, look at how much he's changed. Like he's a whole different person. And I feel like that's what we do with our whole reality. Everything that we don't focus our attention on that's going on in the background, it's like a cartoon. It's that cartoon background that just keeps running. And I feel like that's exactly what it is when we're putting labels on stuff and when we're naming things. So his meditation, his ways, he sits there.
Okay.
Oh, my good. Now, yeah, there was the whole time, by the way, I don't want to interrupt anybody. There's thunder and lightning going on. There's just crazy. Am I there? And when you guys were talking about that electric, that sunspot, Joe's like that electrical storm. There's like thunder and lightning going on when he was saying that. It was great. I don't want to kill the
funny
flow.
Because the same thing's going on out here too.
Ah,
crazy.
Yeah, but so really this all boils down to at the end of the day is to realize that we are perfect. It's just everything we've ever been taught by outside exterior sources, like growing up, has told us that we're not perfect. And it's a great sales marketing technique. When you feel like you're not perfect, you want to buy things that make you feel better. So you could see why, right? Especially in this country. But I feel like, and you see in India, like when you talk to people that are from India, they have they're always smiling, right? They have this other point of view on the world. And I feel like that's kind of what it is now. Of course, they have their own struggles and their own issues over there, whatever. But in this Western society, I really feel like the key is to just accept yourself as perfect. There really is no work that you have to do. Like we talk about self-work and working on yourself and all this stuff. I feel like that's a label we do for this, a label we use for the stuff that we do. But really, there is nothing to do in I feel like I'm speaking to myself here. That's really what's going on.
We're always preaching to ourselves.
On the show. Exactly. It's not like this is something I totally figured out. And like, now I'm going to be like, ooh, and I'm going to be like above a 700 and I'm going to levitate and you guys are going to have to, bring me, whatever gifts. But I think this is what gets lost a lot. People get into this spirituality, they meditate for a little bit, or they get a practice and they feel really good. And then they're on this mission, and their mission is to always fix themselves. And it's this under like program that's going on in the back that's saying that you're not all right still. And I feel like if you could just kind of see through that or get over it, it's a huge step.
Yeah, and all of this is just ways that we can talk about things, right? A lot of the stuff we talk about is like a yes and no, or a yes but no type of thing. Because in one way you can say, yes, we're doing self work, we're doing inner work, we're doing the hard work, because you can say that about doing things like letting go, because it can be difficult, especially because we've been holding on to these patterns and these old patterns of belief. So yes, in one way you can say, yes, we are doing the work. And the other way is like the way of the Tao would say, like, there's nothing to do. Right.
Literally.
Because you are already perfect as you are. In other words, you're perfectly where you're supposed to be. And yeah, you're going to do, but you're going to not do too. You're going to woo way. You're going to woo way.
It's like if I wanted to drive down, to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, I'd have to drive through New York and New Jersey and Maryland and Delaware and Washington, D.C. and Virginia, North Carolina. I could drive that whole way, or I could be driving, and while I'm in Delaware, I'd be like, why the fuck am I in Delaware? My fucking life is ruined. This sucks. This is not where I want to be in Myrtle Beach. That's literally what we're doing. We're on our journey, our dharma, and we're like, fuck, why the hell am I in Delaware? This sucks. I need to be in Myrtle Beach. No offense to Delaware, it's a beautiful tiny state, but you guys, you know what I'm saying.
I thought you were gonna say something to the effect of like you could be somewhere, right, and then you're on your way home and you know the route, and it's like flow. You don't even, when you get home, you're like, oh, I don't even remember when I've passed under the bridge for the 202 or whatever, like because you were on this, it was like autopilot, right, on this path. You can be in that autopilot where the things around you aren't bugging you and bothering you. You know your way home, all's good. You were listening to your favorite song, whatever. And
how dare you? You're listening to the Over Sharon show. I'm just kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
And your favorite show in the realm. But yeah, so you can also look at it that way, as like being in flow and not worrying about the little moments, like the guy that tried to cut you off as you were on your way, or the people that were allegedly trying to slow you down or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
So they're just all ways of talking about these topics.
Yeah. And maybe we should dive into the actual process of letting go and how it could look for people and how it works and all that stuff.
Yeah, we were supposed to get there. So good point.
Why aren't we there? No,
yeah, we're on our way. So Joe, since you read the book and all that,
Joe, you're the nerd.
Well, you tell us like what kind of the basics of what Dr. David R. Hawkins talks about, and then we can do some banter along the way.
All right. So everybody literally has experienced this before. Everybody has done it before. Maybe they didn't consciously know what was going on, but I don't know. Say you lost your keys, right? I was thinking about that earlier. And you're like, oh my God, where's my keys? Where's my keys? Where's my keys? And you're like, you're charging, you get this emotion feeling coming up, and then you're like juicing it, and then you're using that juice to cognitively try to figure out, oh, it could be there, blah, 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 blah. All these, oh my God, I got to be at this place at this time. Oh my God, I need my keys. I need my keys. And then you find your keys, and then all of a sudden you go, and then that emotion goes, ooh, and it all went away. That whole charge went away. And then that whole context changed. And now you're not worried about it anymore. For example, or there was one interview, the guy put it greatly, the same thing, like you lost your car and you're like, and then finally when you find it, then all of a sudden it's gone. And the same thing, we've done it we do this our whole life, and especially as we age, we naturally all are going to start letting charges go as we age. Well, most of us anyway. And like, so it naturally kind of already happens. It's part of the growing up process and getting older and blah blah blah. So where like you've had start having more experiences, and eventually you might have been holding on to something, but then you had an experience and you're like, well, I don't care about this anymore. You let it go. Now that's how there's a thousand ways to God, so to speak. Pretty much any path is working with you through steps in the system that you're going to be letting go along the process. However, you can cut the foreplay, so to speak, and go straight to just letting it go. Like I was saying earlier, any feeling, sensation, pain, whatever, anything you feel has a sort of a vibratory kind of, it fizzles. It's like it's electricity. It's literally electricity.
A charge or something.
Yeah. You could feel it inside of you if you pay attention. If you look inside yourself right now, there's all kinds of things going on. There's all kinds of feelings and sensations going on right now. And if you're having thoughts, there's one of those feelings or is being squeezed, is being juiced, or you feel a pressure before a thought starts happening. Like, so you don't even worry about the dots because all the dots are coming from feelings and sensations. Like it's literally your consciousness starts literally juicing it and creating pressure, and that starts generating the thoughts from that energy. So, like right now, there's
just quickly, when you say juicing, is it like overthinking it and just generating all these thoughts about
it's literally juicing, Sharon. It's literally, if you look inside yourself, if you look inside right now, that thought that caused that question, there was some energy inside you where all of a sudden there was a tightness or a pressure or a pushing on or pressure is the best way to put it. Like, and as you're pressing on it, you're creating a charge. Like you're creating more electricity, like a power plant. Like the bicycle with the fucking light bulb example I said earlier. Like it's literally as you're creating juicing on it, you're squeezing on it, or you're putting pressure on it, is generating dots. Because the moment you start letting some of that pressure go, wherever you're feeling it, I could feel it all over the place, depending on where it is and what energy it is. It could be in my head, it could be in my neck, it could be in my chest, it could be in my stomach. Most of them I say are in the stomach. Like you feel like the pressure, and then all you have to do is relax on the pressure, and immediately the dots go away, and then you're left with just this feeling and no dots. Just you're just kind of aware, but we do this since we've been doing this our whole life. It's an unconscious process. We're constantly juicing things, we're shoving things down, we're trying to change things. A feeling arises, a desire literally arises to want to change that feeling, and then you start juicing that and creating dots and, oh, how can I get rid of this feeling, blah blah blah, or whatever. Or you just straight up change the channel. I like to say you change the channel, like you shove it out of consciousness and back into the unconscious, so you don't have to experience it. But as long as you're resisting it, as long as you're trying to change it, as long as you're juicing it, you're continuing to add power to it. And then eventually it's just going to get shoved into the unconscious because you're going about your day, your life, blah, blah, blah. But the moment you stop juicing on it or pushing on it or trying to change it, and you just let it be there, it's literally like this electrical charge. It feels like a plasma, like this electrically charged plasma, like this physically energy that's a feeling or a sensation or whatever it is. I mean, depending on what it is, it's got a different tone, so to speak, but it's always like this electrical kind of thing going on. And if you stop, the longer you can just experience it out, just experience it without trying to change it, just let it be, let it happen. If you get stuck, be like, I actually enjoy this because why else would I have it? On and on and on. Like it literally starts, most of them are like the really ones we've been juicing for a long time are literally compressed themselves into like this spherical kind of thing. Like, and which makes a lot of sense, as above, so below, right? So, but anyway, or as within, so without. People don't mention that part, but that's part of it too. But anyway, so as you start letting it go, letting the pressure go, it will start expanding and drifting up or outward, and or it literally starts dissipating it, then it turns into like this cloud. And most of the feelings we experience are more like a cloud anyway. It's just the ones we've been charging a really long time that are compressed themselves. But and it starts, you experience it out, just experience it out, not trying to change it, just accept it, admit that you like it, like just let it happen. And eventually it fizzles itself out and then it just disappears. And that cloud is gone. And then the light of God, the awareness literally replaces where that was. Like, so you might have been juicing like something of a lower energy, like creating like this whole story or theory or opinion about something, and you're like, I know this is true. I know because I read all this, blah, blah, blah. And then the moment like that energy finally is gone, that which was true in that energy stays, because truth just is. And everything that was bullshit that was part of that charge goes with the charge. So now all you're left with is what the true data point, so to speak. And then that awareness kind of is like, well, you thought it was this, but actually it's this. And there's no charge behind it. It's just peace, neutrality. It's like, oh, aha moment. Oh, I see now. Like, I didn't need to think this out. Like Brandon was saying, what Alan Watts was saying is we're so lost in symbols and words, which is structure, which is making something finite out of the infinite. So we don't see something with all its nuance, because everything is very complicated in this world.
Yeah.
And but you don't even need thought, so to speak, like to figure something out, because it's just instant pattern recognition. Like the same thing, like you look at a cat, you don't have to think it's a cat. You're like instant pattern recognition. Oh, that's a cat. Now feelings will start to arise if you hold that field, and then you start juicing them. Oh, this is a cat. I had this experience of a cat when I was a kid. I had 2 cats myself, and on and on and on. But you don't technically need that. You instantly can recognize it's a cat, and all the nuance to what that means instantaneously, no thought required. It's just there. It's in consciousness. It's from pure awareness. Like it's like, so like we're constantly juicing and trying to replace this awareness with thoughts, and that's how we start steering off the path, because we're like, oh, we don't want it God's will, we want to do it our own way. Like, so I'm going to think this through and juice these feelings, and I'm going to figure this out, and eventually I'm going to create this fucking charge that's going to be part of my inner universe, gravitating around everything else, doing its thing in the unconscious, causing all kinds of issues, especially if a lot of that part of that charge is bullshit, which all those pretty much, the secret to every dot is technically coming out of an energy under 200, because those are the polarized energies. Those is how we create charges. We need a polarized energy to make a charge. Like, it doesn't mean that everything will be bullshit. Like because you can kind of look as you go up the scale of consciousness, like there's an equilibrium between spirit and ego, like everything under 200 being ego, everything over 200. And so as the higher you go up, there's more spirit, less ego, like a kind of a ratio going on. So yeah, you could be integrous with the intellect, for instance, like people in the 400s, especially, like, and be very integrous with the internet, because you have that integrity going on in the background. You have your spirit going on in your background, making you integrous, but you're still, I've been noticing that most thoughts are coming out of like this nervous energy, like this, it's got to be on the spectrum of like fear and angst and all that, but you don't even really experience it, like, unless you overdo it, like, for the most part. Like that's why when you overthink, you get anxious. Well, it's because all you did was crank up the energy that you're using for the thought in the first place. You just didn't notice it. You didn't experience it as anxiety or angst or anything like that, because it was so weak. But you're generating, but if you keep doing it, eventually when it gets strong enough, then you start getting anxious, right? So like, or when you overthink. But that's how most thoughts are being generated, are coming out of this nervous energy. Like, you're juicing this nervous energy to create these thoughts and trying to take control of the situation, trying to create your ego's world view, or your ego's thought upon God's view or God's thought, so to speak. Like, instead of just instantly knowing, you want to think it out. You want to control the situation, which comes out of fear. Like, that's why most thoughts are like, you're mostly thinking out of fear. Oh, I got to control this, or something bad's going to happen. Like, so I got to think this through. So let me juice the shit out of this. And like, you don't even notice that it's anxiety because it's so weak usually, unless you overdo it. But if you pay attention, all thoughts are coming out of this nervous energy. So all thoughts essentially are, doesn't mean that all thoughts are bullshit necessarily, but there's, I guess you can look at it like it doesn't matter if it's to this energy, if it's true or false. Like it doesn't care. It's just working through the logic of all the information. Um, like, so yeah, so kind of losing my train of thought here.
I think we were wanting you to explain the process of letting go.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. So yeah,
That's
so
okay.
the process. Well, that's actually a good one because that's one you're going to deal with throughout the day is thinking. So as soon as that, and that's why a meditation practice with developing a single point of the mind, because the more you develop a single point of the mind, the more conscious more awakened throughout the day you're going to become of this. Like I just go through my day, I could be unconscious for like some minutes, and then all of a sudden the single point of the mind kicks in. I'm like, oh, there's dots going on. Let me let some of that pressure off. Oh, the dots are gone. Okay, now I got this sensation. Oh, okay. Oh, now this other feeling is popping up that wants to change this feeling. Okay, so before I can even tackle that feeling, now I gotta like let the air out of that feeling, which is just like I said, just experiencing it through, not doing anything to it, just letting it dissipate on its own. And then you get to that feeling, and you'll notice that like all kinds of resistances pop up. Like you feel them. There's almost like barriers around your feeling, or I think of them like it's literally electromagnetic. So it's like when two magnets of the same charge hit one another, they kind of repel, and if you feel that force between them, you feel that in yourself as like different feelings are like competing with one another, like causing all kinds of resistances. That's like why if you say, okay, I live in a mansion, like they tell you to manifest things, you got to believe it. Like you see in your mind's eye, if you do that, immediately you're going to see all the feelings pop up that are resisting that right now. And if all those feelings were gone, you would be there. Like it's all those resistances that are, and most of them are coming from their unconscious, from these really charged things, which is really going to be the work. Is the things that come through the day, letting go thoughts, blah blah blah. Those are pretty easy, but once you start allowing stuff to come out of the unconscious and allowing it, you start seeing, like, oh my God, there's a lot of energy to some of this stuff. It's really compressed. Sometimes it's so compressed, it's almost like a little dot in consciousness where it's coming from. Like I experience that all the time. Like there'll be a resistance. I know there's a resistance, like because I can feel it, but like it's very subtle and I don't know where it's coming from. Like it really is experiential because you have to like look inside and see it for yourself and experiment. You really just have to look inside and play around, I guess is the best way I could put it. Pay attention. What the hell is going on inside you? There's all kinds of stuff at all times going on inside you. And to be able to release something, you have to first release all the resistances. So you have to flush them out and those feelings that are trying to change the feeling or suppress the feeling, on and on and on. So you got to let those out. And then you got your constant anxiety, angst going on, the experiential angst that the philosophers call, that's coming from that energy that's making you think all the time. That's why it's there, because it's always there, because you're always powering it like throughout the whole day, right? You're always powering it. And then that's why you have this angst going on in the background at all times, because you can't stop thinking, because you want to control everything, like everything. Like you, something bad's going to happen if I don't control it. Or you get to a point as well is like, oh, if I let go of all these feelings or sensations, I'm going to cease to exist. Like there literally is a fear there, like that you're going to die. Like if you let enough go, like if you let
The
certain things
ego
go,
will
you're
die.
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
yeah. Well, it doesn't even die. It just
I know.
gets transcended. Like it's like, but it's so stupid. It thinks it's going to die. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So yeah, it's the letting go process. I guess maybe I can even walk you guys through it, the audience and you guys. Just close your eyes right now and feel something's going on inside you. I don't, God knows what it is. Like there's some sort of that electrical kind of feeling going on inside you somewhere in your body. Like can you let go trying to change that? Can you let go of any desire to want to change that? Can you accept this as it is? Can you, and as you're doing this, think of just literally like you're holding a piece of paper in your fist, and then you just open your fist and it just falls to the ground. Do that to the feeling as well. Like relax your grip on the feeling. Like just let it be there. You might try to grab it again, just relax it again. And you just keep doing this. If you start thinking, there's another feeling, trying to change that feeling, so take care of that. Like it's an ongoing process. It is in a sense work because it's just so complex. But actually I could take you guys through an even easier one. Look at the wall. You like the color? There's immediately going to be some sort of feeling that arises, like a small charge that makes you say, I like the wall, the color of the wall. I don't like the color of the wall. I don't give a shit about the color of the wall. There's going to be a feeling somewhere. Now that's a really small charge. Like that's a great one to practice, like, or anything in your room. That's literally the first lesson in the Course of Miracles. They tell you to do this. Just look around the room. Like I get any meaning. I'm looking at something, anything I like or dislike. There's a charge. I could feel it inside, somewhere in the body. And I'm juicing that charge, but it's such a light charge, unless you really like or dislike the color of the wall for whatever fucking reason. But it should be a very small charge that you can just let go in a minute or two, and you actually can experience what the hell I'm talking about. Because I don't know, telling you guys to look inside yourselves right now, there may not be one that's really charged. So that might take hours, days, weeks, months to let go. So just continues to let go, but you could practice with little ones. Like I said, look at the wall, color of the wall. Do I like it or not? There'll be a feeling. Can I release on that feeling? Can I let that feeling just be there? Like, can I stop juicing on that feeling? Like, and that charge should dissipate in like a minute or two, and you'll get experiential knowledge of what I just was talking about. So, but anyway, I'll turn it to you guys. I need some water.
So it seems really like, because I remember coming over the Sedona method, and then it's similar because I think David R. Hawkins was pretty integral and all that stuff. But it really does seem that you're trying to identify the feeling, and then you ask yourself those questions, like, can I let it go? Will I let it go? Why not? Stuff like that. And then as you're doing that, you're just kind of letting it go.
Yeah, we talked about it on a couple of episodes. I'd have to look back to see which ones, but they were pretty early episodes where we talked about that. Yeah, Joe was saying that I guess David R. Hawkins learned the Sedona method from some guy, and that guy was he said it earlier.
Oh,
the guy
yeah,
was
okay.
gonna sue him if he let it out in the book or something like that. But then after David R. Hawkins died, the book was released. But yeah, it was when things like that's like just something simple like a method or something to do like that like gets copyrighted and it's like it's mine. It's like, to me, that is so ridiculous to think that you own it and you want money for owning it and selling it. Like that kind of stuff always really annoyed me.
Well,
and yes, I have a charge about that.
Yeah, I understand why a con artist would want to grab that, because that works, and you can get somebody to feel it works in literally a day. So and then you just claim credit for it, and then like. To be honest, it's best try not to mentalize or think about any of these things. It's kind of more of just a knowingness. Like, I know I just have to let this be. I know I just have to be aware. Don't want to think, because if you're thinking, that creates a charge. So so then you have to deal with that charge before you even get to the original one.
So it's more of like an acceptance, I guess, too, of how the way things are. So let's just use the example of pain. Like if you have some pain in your back or whatever, you're just, instead of trying to resist it and wishing that you could fix it or do whatever, you just sit there with the pain. Is that what you're saying, basically? And
yes, and relax it. Stop gripping on it. Stop trying to tighten it. Immediately, there's probably going to be some feelings, because there always are actual feelings attached to these sensations and pains and stuff. So you're gonna, like, by letting, like, just the sensation, say your back go immediately, or within the minute, you're probably going to have a feeling arise that was probably tied into that somehow that you have to release. So it's like layers. Like there's literally like galaxies and solar systems of shit, like of charges, like moving with one another, attached to one another in their gravity, so to speak. So it's like, um, you have to like, it's not just like most of the time letting one thing go. There's multiple things that are gonna rise up. Like when I ever let go of like the Rheuma tightness, whatever, immediately anxiety came. Like oh no, I got to tighten this to protect myself, kind of deal. Like so I release on the anxiety, and then when the anxiety is gone, now I could go back to the sensation that I'm feeling that's leading to the pain, and then that starts getting a little lighter and looser. But now another feeling came out that's attached to that. So it's like all kinds of things. It's like you just got to let whatever comes up come up, let it experience itself out. If you truly just let it experience itself out, it just goes away. Because that to me, that is what's binding us to karma. A lot of it, anyway, is these charges in our body. Because our body is electrical. We like the physical manifestation is these feelings that were these inner universe, so to speak, of all these feelings interacting with one another. So you have to like release them all up one by one. Oh, man, I totally lost my train of thought now. Like,
Mm-hmm. I
what was I
see.
saying?
You were talking about how. Well, go ahead, Spoons. If you had a better.
It just went away. If it comes back, I'll.
I was going to say, while you guys think about what you were what you were trying to say, episode 16.16, when we were doing those old numberings, and episode 18 of Oversharing, we talked about the Sedona method. So,
And it feels like to me, it's going back to the same thing as you are perfect. There's a pain in your back and it's there for a reason. It's okay that it's there. And it also reminds me of like what the shadow and the unconscious, like Carl Jung talks about. We have these feelings that arise because of something happens, right? Whatever it is, and we don't accept it, and we don't accept the feeling. So we just push it down and it never goes anywhere. I think it just stays there until it has its day in court, right? It's a feeling. It just wants to be felt so it can escape and be free. And we're kind of like, we have this like gas tank of all these feelings that we just want to hide or whatever. And I think that's really what leads us to do all these behaviors that it's like a spiral, and we feel shame or whatever because of the behavior. And it's just a cycle. Keeps it going.
My train of thought came back. I was saying karma, like this seems to be our the physical representation in our body of the karma that we're holding on to. Because like when you do occult magic, for instance, you're literally putting one of those charges into the unconscious. Like you're charging it to a ritual, and you're not letting it go. You're literally creating this huge charge, and then you're shoving it down into the unconscious. And then when you forget about it, synchronicities play out through the month, the week, whatever, and that's how things manifest. So all these charges are literally anchoring us to these fields of karma that we're going to have to experience it out when that part of the cycle gets to us. But it really does seem when these charges are released, like that karma is gone. Whatever you did to charge that, that's going to manifest at some point when the cycle's ready. If you let it go, that's not going to manifest now because it's gone. It's forever gone. You're more in line with God's will, with your dharma, so to speak. There does seem to be aspects of karma like that are written into the dharma, so to speak, into the story. Like for instance, if you lose your hand, like I was saying in the group, you let go of your feelings all day. Like your hand ain't coming back, man. But and there might be issues that I don't think your hand's growing back.
Maybe under a vapor canopy it would.
You ever see Swamp Thing? No, I'm just kidding. What were we saying though? I got to bring the humor, like I'm like a comedian here.
But no, like there's certain things, but you just go into it like anything could be released. Any karma can be burned. Because you're literally, when this feeling is going on, you might be experiencing it over the course of hours or days or weeks, but you're letting yourself experience it now. So if you just let yourself experience that raw electric energy and let it fizzle itself out and disappear, you don't have to manifest it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Maybe the way to say it is, and you probably said it this too, but a little different, is this thing that have this feeling that you have, it gets planted into your unconscious like a seed. And at some date, it's going to sprout and become karma for you. But if you're able to express it, like you said, before that day happens, then it's just gone. It's like once it's out of there.
You root it out, basically.
Yeah.
Yes. It's because those charges, based on my understanding of how occult magic works, my experiences with it, is that charge that's creating the field to which synchronicities are going to play out. And then when the time is right, it manifests. So
it's like a plant.
Yeah.
It gets planted.
Yeah.
The roots take hold. But if you root it out and the roots aren't that big, it's not as hard. And you root it out, then it won't grow.
Well, and it dissipates then. So it's kind of like you're predestined to, like, just like karma, to experience this event because of this feeling that you couldn't let go. And that's the thing that I forgot to say. That event is going to give you a time to experience that feeling again, and it's going to come from your unconscious. So that maybe even that's how the cycles get perpetuated, right? So there's this seed or whatever it is in your unconscious, and it's now part of your karma. So as you're going along, every so often it manifests into karma, and the universe says, "Are you ready for that feeling again?" And you say, "Fuck no," and you push it down. And now by doing this, you're feeling it on your own terms, and you're just letting it go, because the feeling just wants to be felt, if you can think of it that way, right? And then you just let it go.
Yeah. Yep. You can either experience it as just this electrical plasmic gaseous thing going on inside you, or you can actually have it manifest into something physical, whether it be sickness or something happening in the external world or thoughts or whatever. Everything's on cycles, and it's literally that charge that's anchoring you into the electromagnetic field that's going to play out the synchronicities. So
you're literally taking control. I'm sorry to cut you off, of your own life at that point. Oh, okay, yeah, you're literally taking control of your own point, that of your own life, then, but not in a controlling way, not in a way where you're trying to control, but just in a way where you're. And again, maybe we're just in this realm, in this place, on this planet, in this realm, whatever it is, to experience these feelings, to somehow shape our consciousness. And if we just keep denying them, we're just going to get stuck in this realm in the same situations over and over again. And the universe is like, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. And then finally, like Joe said, you now choose on your own terms to just release it. You're like, all right, this was stupid. I don't even know why I'm holding on to this. And then you just, or whatever, you don't have to get mad at yourself, but you just release it and let it go. And I feel like that's been expressing a lot in my life. And I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. But now that I'm conscious of it and I could dive into it, I'm really excited about it. So thank you, Joe, for that.
I had this wild hair up my butt to look up the word resist, because I guess I've heard it used in the biblical way, like in the book of James, when he says to resist the devil and he will flee, right? And then I was reading that book by what's his name, the Russian guy, Tolstoy, and it was talking about non-resistance. And so all that stuff was a little bit confusing to me about that word. So I was going to share my screen if I can to see the word resist, and maybe we can just kind of talk about what that means really quick. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, all right. The first definition says to withstand, strive against, or oppose. And then the next one says to withstand the action or effect of. And this other one says to refrain or abstain from, especially with difficulty or reluctance. I feel like they kind I don't know, when I first read this, it seemed like these are kind of opposites in some ways, right? Is it me?
Well, the in the context it could be used, I think I see what you're saying because well, what popped into my brain was to refrain or abstain from. You're literally resisting because you're refusing, you're refraining or abstaining from feeling those feelings,
Oh,
right?
you're pushing away from it.
Yeah.
It's not like a okay, like whatever, I let it go. I'm just not gonna have that. It's more of like I'm doing it with an effort because I'm pushing away from it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I force.
Yeah, of
Yes,
course. Exactly.
makes sense. Okay. To withstand or strive against or oppose. Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify on that because did we use that terminology earlier to talk about like feelings?
Yeah, I mean, I was explaining earlier in the context of this letting go, like we're discussing resistance is like, um,
Futile.
it's like it's that.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I said futile if you didn't hear me, Joe. You're like resistance is, and I'm like futile. It's a
So
Star Trek joke. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, in the context of this resistance is you're trying to change it. That's what's
Okay.
going on. Yeah, and you're feeling that sensation
trying to
of
think.
resistance, like I was explaining earlier with the two
Control.
magnets, that force,
Yeah.
Mm.
like they won't come together. There's
Opposing.
force. Yes,
Opposition.
that's
That
resistance.
force. Okay.
And immediately when you try to change something, you create a resistance. And there's all kinds of unconscious resistances going on from things in your unconscious, charges in your unconscious. And you could feel them anytime you bring up anything. Like I said, like I live in a mansion. Automatically, you're gonna feel all these little resistances, all these icky feelings pop up all over the place. That's the resistance, and it's coming out of something in the unconscious that says, "Nope, something's contradicting. I'm in my gravity, whatever this charge is saying, in my gravity, you're not going to get that because it contradicts me. You ain't getting to me. So forget your mansion, that kind of thing. Like it's so um I'm only using mansion as an example, but yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense though because people have all kinds of problems like financial issues or issues with whatever substances or and I feel like that really is kind of the key. It's people can't get where they want to go because of all this unconscious resistance. There's like these stories are playing out and I feel like it does come from these feelings that are shoved down and they're the ones that are maybe that's even where the thoughts are coming from. So when you get in a state and you really feel like something's going to happen, all these thoughts start to pop up and this negativity pops up. And if you follow that train, it's just going to lead you down the same spiral that you've always been on.
Yes.
Yeah, we truly are our own worst enemy most of the time. I think with that control stuff, it's just like, I think you're so fearful of the unknown, or at least that was what it was like for me with the letting go process. It's like, you don't know what all is going to happen in the process and what the after result is. So I think that's what kept me stuck for so long and resistant to the process, because how is life going to be after the fact? And it always changes and it's never in the way you think. So
And that's attachment. That's like not the neutrality that we were talking about earlier, right? When you're asking the dowsing rod or speaking to the dowsing rod, there you have a feeling toward it, and it's not neutral, and there's an attachment there. But anyway, we are at like after the 2 hour mark, so like well over, I think, about
About almost 2 hours
25.
and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could definitely wrap it up. I mean, is there anything else that we wanted to cover in for this episode for the letting go?
I mean, I would just say, as kind of we were talking about on this show with spoons, that there are different ways that people can use to help them. Like Joe said, meditation is one of those things, and it's probably a really, really good one, because it is the one that the gurus, the ones who have reached this enlightenment, have used. So there's definitely
an intention as well. Intention's a big one. Like
intention is huge.
Intending to grow, intending to let go, intending to know the truth, the truth,
Yes,
unconditional truth, whatever that might be.
Yes.
The same thing with unconditional love, intention, and this. How do you build up the intention? Prayer, affirmation, watching content in that vibratory level, like building up that intention, because that's change over time. That's what's changing the field, and the more you can get into a higher field, so to speak, the more assistance you have to let go. So it all works together in like this triad, like intention, meditation, and letting go. You kind of need to do all three, and letting go becomes a lot easier if you do meditation and you build up your intention. So build up change the field towards something more that you're desiring, intention. So prayer is really good. Prayer, pray for God's will. Try not to put your own egotistical, like finite
desires and attachments.
Like. Yes, like they said, like I think it was Socrates, or whoever it was, to pray in the most general sense. Like just pray for the will, however that looks like. Pray for knowledge. Pray for truth. Pray for love.
Understanding and acceptance.
Wisdom.
Too.
Yeah. Compassion.
But don't put an idea what that looks like.
Right.
Just pray for the essence of it. So to speak.
Yes.
So.
Right. I remember as a kid, growing up in the church that I did, as you guys know, I had this thought as a kid, and it was just like very, very true and very like from the depths. I was like, God, always lead me to truth, no matter what. Like, I don't care what it looks like, and I don't care what people think about me. I just always want to know truth. And I feel like that was, I don't know where that was coming from, because I was a little kid, or maybe even a teenager, but I always desired that, because I would see, around me, I would see hypocrisy and stuff. And I was just like, I don't like that, but I just personally, I want to arrive at truth. And I want you, God, to show me that. Like, I don't want anybody else to show me that. I want that to come from God.
That comes from within. That's coming from the source I was talking about. It's like underneath everything that's going on in your consciousness right now, there's from the visual perspective, it looks like a void. There's a void that everything is happening upon. Sound wise, in the audio field, it's infinite silence. Feel wise, it's infinite peace. Like for feeling wise, but regardless, it's infinite, and there's a source to your consciousness, and that's where truth comes from. And it's happy to tell you. You just have to let it do it. Like, stop charging stuff. Try to let go of your opinions and belief systems, which requires letting go of that charge. It has nothing to do with your thought processes and the logic and all that kind of stuff. It's literally all coming from this feeling. And actually, I mentioned that in one of the groups last night, and I'll make this short because I know we got to close. But I've been because I come like the single point of mine again. Like I sometimes catch myself going in and out of sleep, and I start letting go of feelings in that state, which was probably like a delta or a data. And I notice when you start juicing the feelings as they arise in that state between waking and sleep, it causes dreams. Like you grab it instead of having thoughts, like in a linear fashion.
I can imagine. Yeah, that makes sense.
And those lower like nervous system waves, you experience it as a dream, and it's an entire fucking world. That feeling is an entire world that can be played out. And so that's why belief systems can be a charge, literally a charge. You have this elaborate belief system that you can write books upon why you believe that. And it's just all coming out of that electrical cloud, that one feeling. And if you literally, you'll see it. If you can get yourself into a slow brain wave, either through binaural beats or catch yourself going in there and out of sleep, if you grab it, it literally creates an entire world. Like, so, yeah.
Oh, I know. I've woken up and in the morning and I'm like, I'm still tired, but I hate the freaking dreams I'm having. And then before you know it, I'm plunged right back into those dreams. I fall back asleep and I'm right back in those crazy dreams.
Interesting.
But,
so that's a way that you could use that for dream interpretation as well. Like,
I'm
what are
sure.
these dreams trying to tell me what I can have, about what's
Like,
locked in the unconscious?
about what my source, I guess, thing that I need to let go of is.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
The best dream interpretation I ever heard came from Jung. And Hawkins also said the same thing. And when somebody asked him a question about dreams, he's like, well, the best way to look at a dream is like a Rorschach card. What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
And I don't want to look into the book. I want to know what does it mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how you're going to flush out.
Exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. So, all that said, I was just saying to the people that you can use whatever kinds of methods that will help you, that resonate for you. Like Spoons did some sound healing. I've heard also that biofield tuning is helpful for that. I only did a couple of sessions. I can't say that there was anything really super like powerful or anything or crazy that happened after I did them, but there are people that have experienced very powerful things after doing some biofield tuning. So I don't deny that if it's worked for someone, but yeah, just be kind to yourself and allow yourself to feel those feelings because they just want to be felt and experienced.
That's right. When you're in Delaware, enjoy the sights and know that you'll be in Myrtle Beach soon. Right? We'll be there. Shout out to the chat, by the way. Thank you guys for hanging out, especially if you hung out all the way till the end. You guys are amazing. We always say that we have the best chat here on the internet. And Joe himself has even told us that this is the only chat that makes him not want to kill himself. So you have that.
A little dramatic, but yeah.
No.
Yeah, I love the drama though.
But I got it. I was like, yeah, I get it, man. Like, not that we're going to follow through YouTube on killing ourselves. We just meant that it makes us not want to. And when other ones we look at and we're like, oh, this is just, anyway. Thank you guys for hanging out in the chat. If you'd like more Oversharing information, go to morelawsmoreproblems.com, click on the Oversharing tab, and you can find our audio podcast there. There's several ways to support us there, even financially. But what we tell people is the best way to support us is just be part of the conversation. Come here on Thursdays when we either premiere these, like we're premiering this one, or we go live. We're always in the chat hanging out. So come hang out with us, like, subscribe, share it around, hit the bell. It's a good thing to do because, I'm known for randomly going live. You never know. So if you want to stay up on all that, and if you have any questions, leave comments. Let us know what you think. If you have any experiences with this stuff, share your experience. If you think we're full of it, tell us. Whatever you think.
We are.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Because those who know don't talk, and those who talk don't know, and we're just talking to ourselves here. Everybody.
We're just oversharing.
We're just oversharing.
We're preaching to the choir, and that's ourselves.
That's right. Preaching to the choir. That's us. We're going to start our own oversharing choir so we can preach to ourselves. You guys here to sing? No, we just need the choir set up over there so we could preach to them. Yeah, but I've really enjoyed this episode. It's great to see Joe talking so much. It's great. I feel like Doc Joe. It was great. No, I love what you shared, and I think that your personal experience is going to help other people. And when you go back and listen to it, it's even going to help yourself because you're going to see things you weren't thinking of and all that stuff. And I think that's really the key to all this. And then I'll shut up and let Sharon talk. Is that everybody thinks they have the way, but we've always talked about how it's all individual. Everyone has their own way. But by listening to other people's personal experience, not only can you see that it's possible and it can happen, and you can see what is possible, but you start to click and things start to make sense to you, and then you start to find your own path up the mountain. And it's
Yeah.
there's no shame in using someone else's method or whatever it is, right? Whatever works.
Yeah. Speaking of doing things your own way, I feel like the yoga teacher that I had years ago, um, she was so awesome. I loved her. I'm sure she's still around, but I just don't. I used to work at this place, and that was the yoga teacher for there, so that's why. But anyway, she was amazing, and what I really liked about her was that she would give you options. So she knew all these things, like the concept that Brandon was saying. You can open your eyes or you can close them. Do what works for you. Like she would always say, you do you. And she did talk about the concept of, yes, some people see it as if you're closing your eyes, then you don't have any distractions. But then again, if you're opening your eyes, and I see it this way, like if you're opening your eyes, then you can use those distractions as a way to go back to the focus, right? Like goat yoga, like the goat's like trying to climb all over. Can you still do yoga when a goat is climbing on you? That's part of right. That's part of the process of like just allowing it just to be what it is and just going with the flow and letting things just happen, right? So however that looks for you, you do you.
Well said. Is there anything else you guys would like to say before we get out of here? Spoons, you can go first if you want.
Thanks for having me back on.
Thank
I've
you.
enjoyed getting to have this conversation and just kind of getting some new perspectives. And yeah, I hope to do it again sometime.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. And I do got to say that Joe, like I do appreciate your um willingness to be open to going back and looking at your videos and like doing that hard work of like saying, I was being negative, I was being this way, I was being that way. And you just do come across more light, like more, you just do. You're coming across more light.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on. And thank you for
Yeah.
joining us, Spoons. And I guess I'll just, yeah, I do radically feel like a different person than I did 2 months ago. I'm just being honest. Like,
That's amazing.
and I don't want to give the idea like I know it all or I'm enlightened or anything like that. It's not coming out of that place. I'm coming out of this works. It's worked for everybody that's ever fucking tried it. I if you actually try it, because I've noticed a lot of people that don't even try. They just want to give you their opinion. I'm like, all right, so you don't want to even try? It's one thing if you tried and you're like, oh, it's not for me, but you don't even try. But yeah, there's so much stuff going on inside you that this really is an all day, every day kind of thing. So I don't want to. It's not like you're just going to sit there 10 minutes every. I mean, it's better than nothing if you sit there 10 minutes to do it, but it's really all day, every day. There's just so
It's
much
an
stuff that needs
awareness.
to be, yeah. There's so much stuff that needs to be released and experienced out. Like it's not going to happen overnight. Though there are things that you can just experience out in like an hour. But you don't really have a choice. You don't know what's going to be the next thing that arises. And literally,
Yeah.
I feel better today, but for a week there's waves and waves and waves of anxiety. When I stopped resisting and allowed it to come up, waves and waves and waves. I felt like I was being fried inside. I was like thinking, I'm like, I wonder how I'm coming across outside, if I'm being zen or not. But inside, I feel like I'm being fucking fried. So like but then you're like, all right, I want to feel this, and then that changes the context, and it's a little easier to deal with. But yeah, it's an all day, every day thing. You can experience it today, like if you do a small charge, like I said, with the wall or whatever, something in your room, just sit there and experience it out. Like I said, just Open your hand, like the feeling inside, and just let it float there and fizzle out. It will fizz a small charge and like the wall will fizzle out in like a minute, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So that's it.
And I will say that what you were talking about reminds me of like back when, you'd go to church and they'd be like, you pray every day and pray on your knees and pray at night and in the morning. And I'm just like, yeah, I pray all day. Why are you playing? I mean, I pray in the car. I pray when I'm brushing my freaking teeth. I pray all the time. Like, I don't know why I have to do it at a certain time, like, or I have to be kneeling down or I have to be in some position. Like, I pray all the time. So, like, I can apply this to the same thing. Like, I can be thinking about those thoughts and then I can also just be letting them go at the same time all day, every day.
Yeah, I feel like the more you do it, the better you get at it, just like anything else in life. And then it becomes second nature. And then guess what? You're a whole different person. Instead of when something happens, instead of looking at why you're the victim and why this happened to me, you're just letting it go and you're acting, I don't know, more like an adult, more peaceful or whatever it is. And again, like David or Hawkins said, if a brick falls on your foot, you're still going to freak out. So be easy on yourself. But yeah, I like it.
And I was going to say earlier, I saw the 3:33 Arizona time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Earlier when Joe was talking about people on the or people saying, that not even trying it and talking shit about it. And I stopped myself, but I was going to be like, yeah, it's called the internet. Everybody has an opinion about something they never tried and they want you all to know about it.
Well, that's you do you. If you want to keep juicing those charges, nothing's going to stop you. And at the end of the day, it's an addiction anyway. So that's why.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? We're all it's like we're asleep, and when you wake up and you want to make a change or be a different person, that's when you wake up and you're conscious, right? And you start to work on this stuff. So
yes,
yeah,
it's okay if you're not doing it.
It's okay if you leave bad comments. We don't care, everybody.
That's where you're at. You're part of God too. You are a part of God. God bless you.
Exactly. Oh, all right, everybody. I think we got to that point in the show. So I'm going to ask Sharon, what do we say to the good people?
That once you start over Sharon,
then you totally stop being a Karen.
That's right.
Remember, that's right. And remember, everybody, we're not trying to tell you how to live.
Just trying to give you some tips on how to let go a little bit more easily.
Exactly.
Perhaps.
So let it go, everybody. We're letting this episode go. You can let go of your stuff too. We'll see you next time. Take care. Have a great weekend, everybody. Cheers.